ставши на коліно, своє полкове знамено, дивлюсь на нього я востаннє, у нез'ясованій журбі, всю кров мою, всі скитання, воно вібрало у собі. Всю кров
Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
О, бля! Игорь!
Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 339 of the news. And as always, it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, and today we're coming to y'all with some of the highest losses we've seen over a continuous period of time for the Russian armed forces. For nearly 4 days or 5 days in a row at this current point, the Russians have lost over 800 soldiers approximate per day. This may be the highest single streak of losses that the Russians have taken over this long of a span of time. But before we get into that news tonight, we have been seeing some interesting things happening around the world, and specifically, when I say around the world, Kazakhstan. It appears that the people of Kazakhstan, which some of our viewers actually are from Kazakhstan, aren't really big fans of the Russians or anything that they're doing. And we saw today that a Russian living in Kazakhstan that had put a Z on the back of their car was forced by locals to take it off. So here's a little clip. I thought it was pretty interesting, and also maybe showing some political feelings or diplomatic feelings that Kazakhstan as a nation has against the Russians. And so here's the clip. You see the Z there on the back of the car?
Убери давай. Давай. Давай убирай. Сейчас убирай. Я вот сейчас снимаю. Давай убирайте. Быстрее.
We can see that Russian pride, that imperialist pride that will nuke everyone that steps in our way, disappearing as a man aggressively comes up to his door, opens it, and tells him to take that crap off the back. We can now see a real Russian here, which is spineless, and they will go back there and take the stuff off.
Мне, они сейчас в Казахстане находятся. В России пускай ездят. В Казахстане нельзя ездить. Убирайте давайте, быстрее.
Now you see that they're immediately taking it off. Man, they got the whole village out here helping out with this. And so that's the end of the clip. And I'm going to give a lot of credit to the people of Kazakhstan. I don't know if they're called Kazakhs or Kazakhstanis. Help me out with that, because I've heard both of them. But regardless, the people of Kazakhstan are incredible with their anti-Russian sentiments. I haven't seen a lot, and I have not talked to many Kazakhstanis that are, I guess you could say, pro-Russian. It seems a large amount of them are anti-Russian, and if y'all know the history of Kazakhstan, much like Ukraine, they have lived under the heel of the Russian Empire and later on the Soviet Union throughout most of their nation's modern history. And now that they've been able to make their own independent country, and they're able to do their own thing, they're not really a big fan of being a Russian puppet or a Russian bootlicker. We can see that a lot of people in Kazakhstan are not a fan of the Russians at all and what they're doing in Ukraine. And this video right here, while a single instance of it, appears to be showing a common trend within the nation of Kazakhstan that they are hardly fans at all. This is also quite surprising, considering that just last year, Russian forces entered Kazakhstan in the middle of the war in Ukraine, a small quote-unquote peacekeeping force, and helped to keep the Kazakhstan's government largely somewhat Russian aligned, or at least neutral to Russia's interests. So that's fairly interesting to see that the public sentiment is anti-Russian, also considering what happened last year. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from Kazakhstan. Of course, a very nice and good sight to see that even Russia's former lands don't even support them. And another thing I was thinking, Matthew, to really show how weak the Russians have gotten, the Russians don't power project anymore anywhere else in the world. They are just trying to grasp for straws to even keep former Soviet republics just indifferent to the Russians. Like with Kazakhstan, they are just grasping at their former glory of what used to be a part of the Soviet Union and the Russian Empire, and now they're seeing all of that slipping away as well, because nobody likes the Russians.
Yeah, their power projection at this point is simply running their mouths on their TV stations.
Man, their power projection goes from the power plant to the house, which is very unlikely in Russia because a decent amount of it still doesn't have electricity. But anyways, we're now going to be moving
wait
on.
a minute. You remember when they projected a lot of power back in the day?
Raise the power.
During the Chernobyl disaster, they
Yeah.
projected a ton then.
Oh, they projected a little too much. That was when the blue light reached to the heavens and everyone went, oh God, this is a mistake. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from Kazakhstan and on into Russia, because today in the town of Ivanovo, which is northeast of Moscow, it's always so weird to look at foreign countries like Russia, because in the United States, that for some reason feels like it would be the eastern part of the country, but it's actually west for Russia. But in Ivanovo, we saw today that a little bit of partisan activity occurred, and it appears that they set a small fire. Also, nice intro. And when you hear the lo-fi hip-hop music playing as this Russian, I think it's a TE-3 locomotive, burns to the ground. Sweet! And also, this was uploaded by the Freedom of Russia Legion. I don't know if those are partisans that are associated with the Freedom of Russia Legion, or whether the Freedom of Russia Legion got the footage and then uploaded it and put their watermark on it, but it is good to know that there is partisan activity still occurring in Russia and trying to hit where it matters most, which is the railroad infrastructure. The Russians rely heavily on their railroads, even into the present day, when most countries, when most countries have moved on from railroads to truck-based transport, the Russians still rely on the railroads. And while the railroads do have some advantages over truck transport, there are some inherent and critical disadvantages, like to move about 80 trucks worth of cargo, you have to have one locomotive. And if that locomotive we saw in film is being burned to the ground, there's not going to be a locomotive to carry those 80 trucks worth of cargo anywhere. Speaking of which, many of y'all have probably not heard of the town of Ivanovo. And also, another interesting thing is that there's a military airfield here, and if we look at it, we take a good look at it, it appears that there is a cargo airlift wing, or an airlift wing based out of this airfield, because there is nothing. Oh, well, that's interesting. There's some old AWACS here. It looks like none of them are being used anymore. Most of them look like they're in some state of disrepair. But it does look like the only thing based out of Ivanov, well, let me make sure I get the town name right. One second, everyone. Ivanovo is Lucian 76s. But there's also something else, Matthew. Something I think really shows how dated the Russian military really is. The Antonov 12s. The biplanes.
Oh, man. Oh, yeah, that's not exactly modern.
Yeah, let me show y'all what a decent amount of Russia's transport aircraft looked like. They're not Antonov 124s, that one right there. They're actually... wait a minute, hang on. They're not Antonov 12s either. I forgot the name. One second. Wait a minute, I think they're an AN2. Let me put that in. Yep, there it is, the Antonov 2. I'm sorry, it's not an Antonov 12, it's an Antonov 2. There they are right there. They're biplanes. They are literally biplanes, and you can see that they're still using them at this airfield. None of these look like they're in that bad of a state of disrepair. You can even see service vehicles in front of one of the Antonov 2s, showing that they are still in operation and still in military service. Now, what does this tell us about the Russians? Well, it tells us that they're pretty backwards, and that massive military budget and those beautiful T-14 armadas that some people still insist the Russians have loads of and aren't being sent to Ukraine, for some reason, they don't exist, because otherwise, why would they still be using Antonov 2s like this thing? And so with that, we're now going to take a look at the town of Ivanovo, because I have never looked at this town, and I'm wondering, what does it look like here, in a random street, like right here? Oh, look, it's the glorious Russian Federation. The perfectly paved roads, great upkeep, the sidewalks with the drainage, like with the in-sidewalk drainage, wonderful, I love it. Let's see, let's go down here. We're going to move past the Scooby-Doo van with a drunken man falling out of it, and also his, those are not his shoes. He's actually wearing those, like, Adidas sandal-looking things, it seems, but anyways... yeah, this is Russia, and this is Ivanovo, so it's good to know that there are partisans operating in this area, and also, this place does not look that grand. I would have to say, this is what normal Russia looks like, and it's not that impressive. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from Ivanovo and the great partisan activity that we saw there, taking out a single locomotive, and we're now going to be moving on into Ukraine, because beyond those two bits of news, we didn't get a lot of international news worth reporting today. It seems as though, as far as international news came, a lot of it was just confirming stuff that we had already covered the other day, or there was none at all. So we're now going to be moving into Odessa, where we saw that a Russian missile today was able to hit some kind of a, I believe it was a petrol storage location. But let's take a look. It may also be a power station. I couldn't really tell, but let's take a look at the video. You see the explosion? It looks like a substation.
Ебать его подорвали, пидоры. Андрюха, пиши. Подорвали станцию. Охуеть. Пидоры ебаные. Попали. 2 минуты. 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 2 минуты.
where you see the smoke down rising. It's a thick black smoke showing that it may be oil-based, or there may be some kind of a petroleum-based object burning in that fire. But with that, and that's the end of the clip, and we can see that a Russian missile did hit its target today. The caption here says, Krylata raketa po Odessy. I do not know what Krylata means, but I'm sure that one of y'all knows in the live chat. So if you do know, share it with all of us, because I would like to know what that word means. The rest of it just says rocket hits Odessa, pretty much. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that clip, once again showing the Russians are going out of their way to target critical infrastructure of Ukraine that helps to support its citizenry, to try and make the citizens at large. Why in the world am I having such a hard time talking tonight? The citizens at large from really just living out their lives, and in short, inactive terrorism. We're now going to be moving out of the area of Odessa. For some reason, I'm always thinking it's spelled with 2 S's. It's only spelled with 1 S. And we're now going to be moving up into our location unknowns. And we actually have a very large amount of them today compared to normal, around 7 of them. And you all know that over the course of the war, we've always tried to limit the amount of location unknowns we actually have. It used to be around 12, and then we got it around down to 5, like yesterday, but now we're back up to 8. And that tells y'all there's a lot of things going on that unfortunately we can't locate. Starting off with our first clip, we saw that some folks in the car filmed a HIMARS in operation, but they got a little too close. And so here's the clip. Right here, I would feel like the mistake had been made, but
Новым роком, блядь. Новым роком.
and we can see that the HIMARS fired its one missile right there, and then it immediately packed up and moved on. So that may have been some kind of a precision strike that the Ukrainians were trying to pull right there, but that car was a little too close for comfort. Also, thank you so much, Tom. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from this clip. Not a lot to explain, but that was really bright. That would have scared the hell out of me if I was sitting in that car. But with that, we're going to be moving on into the next clip of news, where we also saw a medic reunited with their daughter. Of course, a courtesy to Radio Free Europe for providing us with this footage and showing us this story. And also, I want to apologize in advance. For some reason, my mouth is not working tonight to properly elocute my words, so I'm sorry if for some reason it sounds like I'm speaking broken English. I don't know what's going on with that tonight, but I'm going to have to just try and deal with it, I suppose. But with that,
You're Scottish, I see.
yeah.
Elb.
I'm sitting here, man. I'm sitting here with it all in my mind, you know, speaking it out, and then I'll sit there and say something like, the rocket hit, and it's supposed to be plural. But anyways, here's the clip.
В Харківській області, місто Вовчанськ, там залишалися мама, папа, і я оставила з ними Єву. От. І так от случилось, що на момент війни ми були, звісно, відрізані друг від друга, не було ні мобільної зв'язку, не було інтернету, у них не було дуже довго електричества, тобто взагалі почти зв'язку з нами не було. Я знала, що вони на окупованій території. У мене були попитки, звісно, неоднократно вивезти Єву, але сім'я моя дуже неохотно на це соглашалась. Ну, можна сказати, вони не зовсім хотіли мені її віддавати, тому що причина була така, що все-таки я служу в ЗСУ, а вони більш настроєні проросійські були, тому я нічого не знала, як вони там, що вони. Дуже багато було емоцій, був і страх, і злость була, того, що ніхто не мав права вивозити мою дитину в Росію без мого дозволу. Коли у мене літом ще була можливість її вивезти через знайомих, коли ще Волчанськ був окупований, я дуже просила свою сім'ю, пожалуйста, дайте мені дитину. Я вивезу її на безпечну територію тут, в Україні, у мене є родственники, моя дитина буде в безпечності. Мені дитину не віддавав ніхто.
You see them tearing down the propaganda posters here in Vovchansk.
поїхали в Росію. Там переночували ми у мого троюрідного брата. І потім ми знайшли такий невеличкий дом, купили його і проживали в селі Володово, Білгородська область. Да.
Я сразу же написала заявлення в поліцію, що мою дитину незаконно вивезли на територію РФ. Поліцейські познайомили мене з Катериною, волонтером, яка десь на протязі 2-3 місяців вона займалася цим питанням, допомагала мені. Я робила довіреність на другу мамочку, яка забрала свою дочку з Росії, і вона забрала і Євочку.
A very fortunate ending to this very touching story. Of course, many families never get reunited. Either the mothers or the parents are killed or the children are killed. But in this one instance, there was a silver lining, and the daughter and the mother were eventually reunited with each other and now are living out their lives somewhere in western Ukraine. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little clip in the Location Unknown News. Once again, a really touching story. I really am at a loss for words, but it's a sweet one nonetheless, and it's good to know that they were finally reunited once more. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of Location Unknown News and on to the next one, where we saw the Ukrainians operating a 50 caliber technical. And so with that, here's the clip. When you see the technical right here, we cannot play the audio because of the copyright, but when you see the 50 caliber firing off its, well, the technical firing off its 50 caliber, and it also has this really interesting metal sheet that makes up a shield for the gunner. Pretty cool to see, and it's very rare that we ever see a 50 caliber machine gun in M2 being equipped onto a technical. Usually, and I'm sure a lot of y'all have seen many technicals in your lives, technical vehicle, they usually have a dishka mounted onto the back of them, which is a Soviet or Russian-made machine gun. And you see one in this picture right here. That's a dishka. It's very rare to ever see a 50 cal put on the back of a truck and made into a technical, but it appears that we're seeing one now. Also, whoever did this, the picture is not that big. Whoever did this and put the 23mm Gush gun on the back of a Toyota, I wish them luck, because I think the recoil will split the frame on that thing in a matter of seconds. But hey, I'm gonna let them do it.
It should be able to hold up a Toyota. That's a Toyota, right?
I think it might be a Toyota, yeah.
I can't really tell, but no, that thing should hold up. Those things are strong.
Oh man, you don't know the recoil of a Gush gun then, because that thing will rip that thing apart. I'm telling you, I promise you, like, this thing is being split in two when it fires. It's going to come off the battlefield shaped like a V. But with that, we're now going to be moving on into the next clip of Location Unknown News Beyond the Technical, where we also saw another interesting sight, where we saw that the Ukrainians have now come up with a unit that's entire purpose is to hunt down the Shaheds, which may be the reason why we saw all 24 of them got shot down yesterday. And so here's the clip. I'm trusting United 24 to not be using copyrighted music, so hopefully it's copyright free. So here's the clip with sound, so I'm sure that's going to be really impressive. We're finally entering the 1920s of cinematography. What? They got the net launcher! Dude, they are literally entering the Looney Tunes era.
Wait, let's see it again.
The drone, its whole job is to launch a net. Check this out.
Wait a minute. Didn't I mention that like a week ago?
I think you did. I think we both.
And I think some folks laughed at that about a week ago. And now they're using it.
You know, everyone's been laughing at you and me, Matthew, because I never said to throw a net at a drone. You said that. But then I said, why don't we just set up comically large nets in some places in Ukraine, and that ought to be able to take some of them down. And they are. They're taking them down with comically large nets. You know, I'm telling y'all, this stuff does work. And the next thing they'll find out will work is 12-gauge shotguns with birdshot will work in taking down drones. I promise you. I promise you, because now we're seeing that the nets are working. It's not the premise I used on the nets. We actually saw that last week. Let me see if I can find this. Ukrainian SPG saved by net. Let me see if I can find the picture here. It's probably not on Google, but y'all may remember it from last week. It was a Ukrainian SPG. It was like a 2S3, and it had this giant, comically large net set up around it. The little kamikaze drone came flying in, hit the net, and that was it. That's all it wrote for the kamikaze drone. It didn't blow up. It didn't take out the SPG. And now we're seeing that they're now using the nets, like Matthew said, and they're now launching them at other drones and shooting them down that way. So we're actually, Matthew and me, think-tanking things before we ever even see them on the battlefield. You know, to give a lot of credit to Matthew here, he actually said this exactly like last week, and they're doing it now.
Thank you. I'll take my credit now.
Yeah, he's gonna have to get his 3 credit points here for that one. The Chinese will now allow him to buy Bing Jilin. But also, I'm telling you, Matthew, I want to see it. I want to see someone with a Remington over-under. Let me go here. Want to see someone? No, I don't like the camo wrapped ones. Let me go find it here on the Google Images. This. I want to see someone with a Remington over-under filled with birdshot over there shooting down drones. I swear it will work. I'm not lying. I have full faith and confidence that at the range that drones dropping bomblets have to be at to drop a bomblet, you can aim that thing up into the sky and certainly shoot down a drone. It's not going to.
I wonder why they haven't done it so far, though. Like, do they not have the shotguns?
I have a feeling that people are overcomplicating the issue. I think that's what the problem may be, is that everyone's not looking at the simple, easy solutions to it, because we've never seen anybody so far in the war use a shotgun to take down the drone. There's never been video evidence of that. But we know in the United States that people who didn't like drones back when they were first coming around would shoot those things out of the sky with shotguns at like 50 to 70 yards range. And so if they can do it, why can't the Ukrainians do it? I'm telling you, these things would work. I'm going to wait and see if they do. Maybe that's the next aid package we need to send, Matthew. It's just a whole bunch of FUDs, like over-under shotguns. Just send them over there and see what happens.
Yes. Directly from the south.
Yeah,
Would you like a shotgun from the south? Here you go, Ukraine. Have some.
Would you like to shoot down a drone and be able to get home in time for pheasant hunting? Well, let me tell you, partner, I just got the thing for you. Introducing the all-new Remington over-under. This thing's going to shoot down a drone and also impress the ladies. Check it out as he shoots down a drone at 70 yards range with just a simple flick of a trigger. Look at that. The awesome firepower. And also some people are saying buckshot. I think birdshot will work better, because here's my thing. Okay, hear me out. All right, let's go look at the DJI Mavic, which is what the Russians are using the most. You see, we're not trying to bust through the central area of the drone. At around 70 yards, considering how small a Mavic 3 is, the spread on the birdshot will be wide enough that instead of getting the body, it'll pepper the body, it won't penetrate it, but it'll take off every single propeller that thing has or damage enough of them that that thing goes to the ground. That's what would happen. At 50 yards or closer, I think you can actually blow away the central part of the drone as well, the actual plastic core, but still, regardless, at 70 yards range, I'm assuming it could take it down. And I'm going to stick to my guns on that one. And I'm going to wait for shotguns to be sent over there and used. Also, someone just said punt gun. Have you ever heard of one of those things, Matthew?
No, I haven't, actually.
So this is a punt gun.
Yeah, that's not very portable at all.
So
what's that guy doing holding it like that? Looking funny, like...
Dude, don't mess with me or I'm going to pull out the punt gun. You just go walking down the street, you know, in a gang war with one of these things. I think you're owning that street. But the interesting story behind these are not usable in Ukraine, but it's an interesting concept, is that punt guns used to be put on boats. You can see one here in the cover of Science and Mechanics in 1911. They would be put on boats, and they would sail these things out. They would disturb a flock of birds. They would go flying up into the sky. They'd fire off the punt gun. The punt gun had so much bird shot in it, and also so much spread just due to its size, it could shoot down entire flocks of birds in a single shot. And so they had to outlaw these things being used in hunting, because birds were nearly going extinct because these things were too effective, and they were killing nearly everything.
Dang.
Yeah, so cool gun, and I do believe that if you wanted to do something like this, wait a minute. Oh my god, Matthew, I just came up with it. Punt guns on technicals.
Oh, nah, I'll pass.
Yeah, I think I'll pass on that one too. Just a simple shotgun will do the trick. But this thing's a little overdone. Anyways, the cool thing though, and I hope y'all enjoyed that little side bit there about the punt gun, but I'm telling y'all, shotguns in Ukraine will work. I don't know why we haven't seen them yet, but we need to, and they need birdshot stat. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from this little clip that actually proves Matthew was right all along about the nets being used from drone to drone. What is that called? An air-to-air net?
I guess so.
I guess so.
That's the most straightforward answer.
And so with that, we're now going to be moving on to something that is a little bit more, I guess you could say, visceral than the drone net. The Russian losses for today. Ooh, golly! Another 850 Russian troops
Oh my
approximated
goodness! Four Bobcats in a day?
I know, right? 4 Bobcat skid steers in a single day. We're talking about apocalyptic levels of Bobcat destruction right here. There are so many of them getting wiped out at this point. They might become an endangered species, and I think that the wildlife what is it, Matthew? The Wildlife Federation or something?
Federation?
Yeah, the WFE or something like that. They need to get involved in here because the Bobcats are about to go extinct at this rate in the Russian Federation. Also, just moving on from the Bobcat skid steers, look at all the losses they took today. 850 soldiers approximated killed, so that could be anywhere in between, 1,300 to around 600. There was around 6 armored personnel carriers wiped out, another 15 supply trucks, 7 more tanks, 11 more artillery pieces, 33 drones, an anti-aircraft system, 47 cruise missiles, and an entire helicopter on top of that. I mean, this is crazy. Also, welcome, technician, and thank you so much for the support. We'll get to that in a little bit, though. We'll make sure to address that. But this is unbelievable losses. These are astronomical in every single regard. Every single aspect of the casualty report has been massive today. The only 3 categories we saw that there were no losses in for the Russians were the aircraft, the MLRSs, and the boats, which we rarely see losses in the airplane and boat category, and we usually see an MLRS getting wiped out here and there, so it's not that odd that there was none killed today, but in every other aspect, this entire report is incredibly odd, due to the fact that the Ukrainians have wiped everything out so well today. And Santiago, you just asked another Ka-52? We don't really know. Again, we never got enough information to tell what kind of helicopter that was shot down. It could have, once again, been anything in between a Ka-52 all the way down to an Mi-8, so we're not really sure on that one. But this right here, I'm going to have to get back to saying this, because at these kinds of losses, the Russian army cannot survive with losing 850 killed a day estimated. That is a very, very high number. That's an entire battalion tactical group being destroyed per day. That means that it'll only take another 170 days to wipe out every single battalion tactical group from the ground up if they started, once again, with every battalion tactical group being at full strength. 850 lost per day means that all 170 of those BTGs would be lost in 170 days, 1 per day. That is such a high loss rate, just in the killed alone. We don't even know what the wounded are. We really can't try and get a number on that because there really is no way to count the wounded. We can only estimate the dead, but going off of how many wounded there usually are for dead, we can assume that this number has to be doubled. It's probably somewhere near 1,800 to over 2,000 Russian soldiers wounded over the past 24 hours. The numbers are astronomically high. It's crazy. And actually, Brent Nansen, thank you so much for saying this. This is a really interesting point. He said 30 to 40 men an hour are being killed. That means one soldier per every minute and a couple of seconds. That's a lot.
I think the math might be off a little bit, but pretty close.
Let's see. Well, let me do it real quick. Let me do 60 divided by 40. Let's see here. 60 divided by 40. It's 1 second, 1.5 seconds. I don't know how I said that the first time. I think I may have butchered it. You may have been right. But that is one. Wait a minute. Hang on. I got it wrong again. That's 30 to 40 Russian soldiers per hour. That doesn't mean that a soldier's dying every 1.5 seconds. I'm doing terrible at math. I'm like that South African prime minister guy who was like 340,900,000, and then he'd restart like 6 times. But one Russian soldier is being killed every minute and a half right now. A minute and a half.
Dang, that's still even bad at that.
That is, because that means that over the course of this stream, which will run for 3.5 hours, which is, let's see, 60 times 3.5. That's 210. So we divide that by 1.5. That means that 140 Russian soldiers will have been killed during the start and end of this stream.
Damn.
That is a lot. That is an incredibly high number. And you got to give a lot of credit to the Ukrainian forces. I don't really even understand these kinds of losses, especially in a modern war, having them this high, but the Ukrainians are pulling this off, and we always get enough video footage to always back up that these loss counts have to be accurate, or they have to be fairly accurate. And so once again, the losses are astronomical, and they can't survive that long with these kinds of unbelievable losses, both in equipment and also troops. They're going to have to call up another partial mobilization in the future if they want to keep this war going for longer, and we'll probably see that coming up in the next few months, maybe February or March. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from the Russian loss report, and we're now moving on into the next bit, where we saw that the Ukrainian artillery was able to stop an advance today quite nicely. And also we got the nice, like, music. We saw the artillery hitting the street. The street got peppered. You see one Russian doing a twerking. He's doing a very bad job at twerking. But we can see another bomblet is on its way. We can see one running. We see another one running. It almost got him. And now we can see the bush is a clown car of Russian forces. We can now see some more here on the side of this berm. We can see one doing the old roll trick. But sadly, the manuals just aren't right. That doesn't really work all too well. We now see one guy making a run for it. The second guy making a run for it. Looks like the third guy is backing up while crawling. We see the third guy making a run for it, the fourth and the fifth guy making a run for it, and they're all out of there now. And oh, look! Oh, never mind. They all got into safety in this giant 4-man group, right on top of each other. It's not looking great down there, and I think that they went from a somewhat bad situation to a far worse one, because now a single bomblet's needed to take out the 4 of them. And now we can see them moving on again, but that was a stupid move to get all 4 of them into a bush. And now we can see they're doing the exact same thing in the next one. The bomblet drops, they're all still running, and it looks like this guy actually fell down later on. It looks like he was only able to get a little bit further before he yelled, "Something bit me!" and fell to the ground, and now he'll be going for, I guess you could say, the long nap. But still, nice to see that the Ukrainians were able to take care of business, and we're now going to be moving on into the next bit of Location Unknown News, where we saw a whole holy moly. This is actually a Ukrainian holy moly, and this really adds to it. I'm going to have to show you all this clip with the audio, even if it has music. I think it may, because I have to show you all this. This was just straight insane. We see the soldiers here on a berm. We see the first guy getting up and moving. The cameraman will follow. They're moving, and you're about to watch this man escape death not once, but twice. So watch carefully. The sniper shot, just right behind him, missing him by inches. And then, to top it all off, the mortar shell that
Oh,
explodes
oh
just
my
50
goodness.
yards in front of him. And if he had been any closer to that mortar shell, the shrapnel probably would have gotten him. So we just watched this one Ukrainian soldier laugh in the face of death, not once due to the sniper, but twice due to the mortar fire. Crazy, absolutely crazy. And now he's running back. He's like, nah, I'm okay. he's like, you know what? I almost died twice. I'm fine. I'm coming back. So let's watch that one more time, because this is the craziest thing I've seen in the war in terms of luck. That guy is the luckiest guy ever.
Super lucky. If they had the lottery in Ukraine, he needs to go get a lottery ticket.
He does need some tickets, because the sniper missing him and the mortar shell missing him, like, they had that guy locked in pretty much in terms of how they were going to take one guy out. Shoot him with the sniper, hit him with the mortar, he ought to be out. He survived both of them without even getting injured. Man, I gotta tell you, that guy must be thinking, wow, this was a crazy day. I'll do this again tomorrow. And so with that, that's the end of the clip. But once again, that was just crazy. There's really not a lot of credit to give to the Ukrainian soldier, because it wasn't anything in terms of skill. This guy is just graced with the best of luck on earth. And so I wish him the best of luck still, because, well, I don't even think we need to wish him the best of luck, Matthew. He obviously has the best of luck already, considering he just dodged both of those things somehow.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, to say the least. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from this insane clip and on to, I believe, the next segment of news out of the location unknowns, and now moving on into the northeast and then into the Bakhmut area and the rest of the front. But before we start covering the completely empty and quiet northeastern front, I have to get y'all mentally prepared for this quietness and the silence. And polls are the best way to do it, because it gets everyone excited, hyped up, and it also allows us to mentally prepare. And so with that, Matthew, what have we got in the polls?
All right. So, as always, well, actually, not as always. This time we have an extra one. We have 3. The first one says, Poland will send 60 more tanks to Ukraine, said the Prime Minister. What are your thoughts? 85% said excellent news, that works. 3% said unsure. 11% said it depends on how fast they can actually get them to Ukraine. And 1% said it won't help, they have enough. Now, on that one, I got to say, that is excellent news. And I'm kind of shocked that they've already committed to putting 60 more towards Ukraine. That is pretty generous, if I do say so. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I have to ask you again, Matthew, what is the additional 60 that are being sent once more?
60 more tanks. I didn't get the exact model, though.
From who?
Poland.
Excuse me. I had to make sure, because I thought for a second you were talking about the supposed, from what I heard was rumors today, that the United States is already talking about maybe sending even more Abrams. But I was like, I may have missed that. There's the Polish.
Here's the exact wordage. It says Poland plans to send 60 more modern battle tanks to Ukraine, in addition to the 14 Leopard 2 tanks.
Interesting. That could be anything, really. The Polish are the weirdest country in this regard, because with Germany, we know they got Leopards. With Britain, they have Challengers. France has Leclercs. America has Abrams. Poland has everything. They have Black Panthers, which are Korean main battle tanks. What the hell's up with Eastern European countries buying South Korean stuff? Like, it's just the weirdest thing. They're not anywhere close to South Korea, and they've got to be the largest arms market for the South Koreans there is. But they have K2 Black Panthers, so, like, are they sending those? It could be those. They could also be sending Abrams, because Poland has Abrams as well, and they've had them for quite a while, actually. Then they also have the Leopard 2s, you know, and we already know that they're sending some of those. Pretty nice looking. And then they have the PT-91 Twardy, which is kind of a very upgraded version of a T-72. And then they have T-72s. And now, I don't call those modern. I don't think anyone in the world anymore calls that even close to modern. So, what is it? What will it be for Poland now? Are they sending K2s? Are they sending M1s? Are they sending Leopard 2s?
I see folks saying that they're sending PT-91s. I'm not sure what that is, though.
The PT-91 Twardy, right here.
Oh, that one. Okay. That's interesting. It's got like skirts around the front of it.
Yeah, it's. I think they're mud flaps or something. I don't really know what the idea behind those are, but they're also on Russian tanks a little bit in some instances, like the T-80U around the bottom of the turret. But still, this thing is pretty neat. It's a very upgraded version of the T-72. it's better. Of course, it's better than what the Russians by and large are using right now. I wouldn't call it a modern Western main battle tank. I would say this is more of a highly upgraded Eastern European main battle tank, but still, it does fit the bill. Also, something very interesting, Matthew, it appears that in the future, it appears that I'm right. The Polish have called for an order of 820 K2 Black Panthers from South Korea. So it appears that they're trying to use almost nothing but K2s in the future. Because they don't have any future orders going for Leopard 2s. They have a very small order in comparison to the K2s ongoing right now for the M1 Abrams. And so it looks like they're planning in the future for their entire army to be made up of South Korean main battle tanks, which is really bizarre, but really neat at the same time, because these things, from what we know, are fairly good. They're comparable, for the most part, to a Leopard 2 in almost every single regard. So that's kind of cool to know. And
that is cool. And also, real quick, I see Hoodoo Texas said he believes it's 30 T-72s and 30 PT-91s.
Interesting. And at that point, I would have to be honest, it's great to know that they're sending them, but I wouldn't say that those, according to that news article, are modern Western tanks, because the T-72 is run-of-the-mill. We see those all over, and the PT-91 is just a heavily upgraded T-72. And we can go to it, and you can see right here another iteration of the Twardy, where you can clearly see it is just the T-72 with some armor upgrades to it for the most part, and some optics upgrades as well. So not that big of an upgrade to me. I do have to give the Polish credit, though. They said smoke grenades are really important, so then they just lathered this thing up with smoke grenades like it's oil in a Turkish wrestling match. But I got to tell you, that is really something that they put that many smoke grenades on it. Like, damn. Like, I'm actually kind of blown away by that. Anyways, we're going to be moving on to the next poll. I think that's great. It's good to know that the Polish are still helping out, but I wouldn't necessarily call those tanks modern. I would say they're just trying to be modern or upgraded to a higher standard. And so with that, we are on to the next poll.
All right, and up next, the second one says, it will take about 6 months for Ukrainian pilots to master the F-16, said Ukraine's Air Force officials. What are your thoughts on that? It looks like 83% said that's great. We should send the F-16s. 7% said unsure. 6% said we need more than that to send the actual planes themselves, meaning we need more info. And 5% said no, don't send the F-16s to Ukraine. Now, if I'm correct, tell me, Enforcer, the F-16 is not commonly used as one of our main fighters anymore, is it?
Oh, it is. It is our still.
It still is?
Mm-hmm. It's the backbone of the Air Force.
Okay. How many do you think we would send?
We have thousands in service right now, and we could probably send hundreds, to be honest with you. Let me go through the list here real quick. I'll show you. Here's the F-16. You can see all of our, I guess you could say, combat aircraft in service. These are really the only ones that count as far as power projection. And we can see here the F-15, 266, F-15E, 218, F-16s. We have 922 of them. And we have 147 of the D variants for training.
Interesting. So we have quite a few of them.
Oh, we have a lot. Way too many.
I would say, if it were up to me on the poll, I would say send the F-16s. Send as many as we can spare without hurting ourselves. 6 months, that seems pretty quick to me to master that plane. I wonder if that's actually going to be the time it actually takes, or is that kind of wishful thinking or not? I think it might be a little too early to tell. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say I think it is perfectly fine to send the F-16 right now beyond the Russians freaking out. I think that would be perfectly fine. There's really not a lot that they could do, or a lot they could really say, beyond trying to go to war with us directly. And we know they're not going to do that because that's suicidal for them. So I think that it'd be totally fine to send the F-16s right now. And we also already know that the Ukrainian pilots have been trained in secret, well, not really in secret because we've known about it, here in the United States. So there are some that already have experience with the aircraft, and we could just simply send some over to those pilots, allow them to operate them, and then continue to train more pilots here in the United States on how to fly the F-16, and then send them back over with the aircraft. Another interesting thing that's been proposed by the Polish is to send over the aircraft largely intact, but requiring some assembly, and just listing the support as spare parts. So sending in like the fuselage of the F-16 and just labeling that as a spare part.
Interesting.
That is an interesting way to get around the Russian threat because we're not sending an actual aircraft into Ukraine. We're just sending the parts into Ukraine just in case if they have an F-16 so that way they can rebuild one or replace some parts that need replacing. So a fairly interesting idea. And also I have seen some people saying the F-15 is the backbone of the Air Force. That is somewhat true, but the F-15 and the F-16 were made to work in tandem with each other in an air superiority role. The F-16s do make up the backbone, however. There's supposed to be one F-15 for every couple of F-16s. The F-16s engage the air targets. The F-15 comes in and wipes them off the floor. So that is kind of how it works, but in terms of numbers and what the Air Force really relies on, the F-16 is the backbone of our armed forces. Well, the Air Force in particular. Also, interestingly enough, this is also really crazy. The F-22 Raptor, which hasn't been around for long, is already supposed to be phased out of service by around 2050, while the F-15 still does not have a retirement in sight, and we're also seeing that the F-35 is getting introduced in some incredibly large numbers. There's still around 1,400 of them on order, and we have 310 of them in service right now.
So the F-22 is junk?
They're saying it might be. There's been some cracks in the airframes. It appears that the airframes can't really handle the stress that they're being put under, and so it's getting more and more expensive to run them as the years go by, and they're starting to see that it's getting way too expensive, and it's just better to retire the aircraft and have used it for an upper hand advantage over these past, I guess you could say, few decades. Well, yeah, I guess decades at this point. It's been about 2 of them. But still, yeah, the F-22 will be gone. Everyone loves it. I gotta say, it was a beautiful aircraft, great design. It did fairly well, but it does have inherent shortcomings, and that is the prohibitive cost of operating one of these. The F-35 doesn't really have that problem. It is also smaller and a little less capable than the F-22, because to mount all of the weapons that the F-35 can supposedly mount, you have to put pylons on the wings, and once you do that, it pretty much loses its ability to be stealth because the pylons show up on a radar cross-section, and that gives away the entire F-35, but still, it is a really good aircraft, and we'll probably see that the F-35 becomes the backbone of the U.S. Air Force going on into the next decade or the next 2 decades from now. If the orders still continue to be of that size, they'll end up replacing practically everything in the Air Force with these.
Interesting. You know, sometimes I just wonder, because you can have the best equipment, and if your pilots aren't trained well enough, for example, like Russia, it doesn't matter how good an aircraft you have. That's why sometimes I think simplicity is sometimes better, and just make sure the pilots are really well trained. And that's probably the best recipe for success in the Air Force.
Also, check this out. I'll put this in. How many hours? So, per average in the U.S. Air Force, an Air Force pilot gets an average of 6.1 flight hours per month. And this was in 2020. And this appears to be a drastic drop, actually. But let's look at the Russians. How many hours does a Russian Air Force pilot fly? 120 flight hours per year. That sounds a little bit far-fetched, to be honest with you, because that means they're getting 10 flight hours per month. And how the hell are the Russians affording that when the U.S., with a $700 billion budget, can only afford about 6.1 flight hours per month in 2020? We were affording 10.9 in 2021 for the pilots, but it drastically dropped off. So, let's see here. How many hours do military pilots get? The average fighter pilot will fly approximately 200 hours each year, or 350 during deployment years. And that was said in 2008, so that number's well off because that was in the middle of Iraq and Afghanistan, so obviously we were wanting pilots to be trained well, but what is it right now? In 2018, they said approximately 200 hours a year, so going off of that, the U.S. is beating out the Russians significantly, even off of this very high flight hour per year number for the Russian Air Force, and that shows that they do have more time in their aircraft. They probably got to know their aircraft better, and they're probably more experienced than the Russian Air Force pilots, and could beat them just off of training alone. And then not only that, the technological gap is so massive in between the U.S. Air Force and the Russian Air Force that something like the F-35, even if you have a poorly trained pilot in that thing, gives it the advantage because the Russians can't even see the thing. All they can do is react to it whenever it fires off a missile. So with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well, but I do think the F-16 could be sent over fairly soon, because we already know that some pilots have been trained, and more can be sent over after we train more pilots in some kind of a program here in the United States. And so with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well, and let's get on into the next one if we have one.
All right, and the third poll says the German defense minister rules out sending fighter jets to Ukraine, and what are your thoughts? It looks like 46% said Germany is being cowardly again, 37% said Germany has its reasons, fine, and 16% said unsure and undecided. Now, I will have to admit, I really don't know the reasons why Germany has ruled them out, and I would like to hear those reasons before I make a judgment on that. So I'm going to say unsure. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say the Germans don't really have much to give except for the Eurofighter Typhoon, and so I wouldn't really care that much about it, because I feel like they probably won't send over the Eurofighter Typhoon because it is the most advanced aircraft in the German Air Force and most European air forces for that matter. So they probably don't want to send that over, but still, I feel like that is a little questionable on the Germans end, considering they did that with the tanks. So let's German Air Force aircraft. We don't want the World War II aircraft. We just want the modern ones. So let's scroll down. I know they got rid of the Tornadoes, didn't they? Because the British got rid of them too. We see their Tornadoes at Goose Bay. But let's keep on going down. Holy moly, we're getting everything but the air. Okay, here we go. So they actually have some Tornadoes still in service. They could send those. But, yeah, you know, do they want to? I don't know. And it's the IDS version, which I believe is the ground support version. So, you know, I don't think that they would be that great. In the Eurofighter Typhoons, they're still fairly new, especially for the RAF and the German Air Force, and sending those over might cause some national security concerns. So in Germany's case, I'll let them slide on this one. Unlike the Leopards, where that was just dumb to say they couldn't, it makes sense with the aircraft they have, because they have such a small number of them, and they're also still fairly modern, and they're using almost nothing but the current iteration of the Eurofighter Typhoon. And so with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well, and we are now on, I think, into the questions.
All right, and yes, we are. That was our last poll for now. And our first super chat we're going to address is from Tom J. Oatley, who puts in a $50 donation, and he says, allegedly, Israel sending 10 Nurkwa tanks and 500 AA missiles to Ukraine as reprisals, Russia buying weapons from Iran.
And I thank you for the support and also bringing that up. Also, once again, I have to thank you so much for the huge support, but I'll get back to that in a minute. I have not heard a lot about Israel supporting Ukraine. We'll pull up Israel news real quick and see. I'm sure it's probably all about what's going on down there in their own country right now, because they got their little things. Yeah. It's just still the same stuff. I cannot see any announcements, though, about support for Ukraine. So let me put out Israel-Ukraine news. Let's see. It appears that there is no clear information on that. So for now, I would have to say I haven't heard about it, and I'll have to do a little bit more research to see if that is like accurate or not, because this is the first time I've heard about it. And also, the Israelis, even if they are doing that, they usually keep that stuff really quiet. Like, we never found out they sent armored cars into Ukraine until one of them was put on film in the Kherson area in late November. And until then, we had no idea that that support had been sent. So I'm not really sure. It is pretty interesting to hear that the Israelis may be sending that equipment. I will be hoping that they are, and hopefully we will see that somewhere in Ukraine. But for now, I don't know if it would or wouldn't be. Also, it is fairly interesting that... As I heard, if I heard correctly, Matthew, that announcement was made today?
Let's see. He didn't specify.
That would be fairly interesting if it was made today, because today is the International Holocaust Day, where most countries that had anything closely associated with the Holocaust remember the atrocities that happened. That was, of course... I guess you could say remembered in Ukraine, Poland, Germany, and many other Eastern European countries where people were, of course, subjugated to the tortures and the deaths involved in the Holocaust. But unfortunately, I don't know if that's been sent, so I really can't comment on it all too well. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. And also, before we move on, I wouldn't doubt that the Russians are buying more stuff from Iran, getting to that part before, so I can make sure I address everything. I wouldn't doubt that at all, because the Iranians are more than happy to supply the Russians, because they're viewing this as a way to get back at the evil Americans. And so with that, I hope I have addressed every single part of that. I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because viewers like you are the only way that we've been able to keep this thing going for so long. We don't run a single ad on the stream. If y'all go back and watch old streams and there is an ad running on them, that's because we got content ID'd. That's why we vehemently avoid getting content ID'd as best we can, because I don't like ads running on old ones, because I tell y'all we don't run ads, then we get content ID'd, there's an ad running on it, someone else is making the AdSense, and then people go, why is there an ad running on this? You promised you never would, and we aren't. But that's why we do that. That's a weird rabbit hole for me to go down. But anyways, I thank you so much once again, because you're helping this channel to keep alive, and without support like yours, this wouldn't have never been possible. And I thank you so much for helping us to keep this thing going and helping the Lee Spring Army to keep marching on. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
All right, and the next one goes to Hokey Redneck, who puts in a $50 donation, and he says, Matt, send one for the chat.
And thank you so much for the support, Hokey Redneck. You are quite the Hokey Redneck, and we will make sure to send one to the chat. And so, thank you so much once again, Hokey Redneck. I know that you know that your support helps this channel to keep on running. Without viewers like you, it would have never been possible. And also, I gotta say, you are one Hokey Redneck. And so with that, let's get to live chat.
All right, so the live chat question goes to, let's see, we have an interesting one here. So it's from David Murphy, who says, how are you two so sure that Russian forces are getting obliterated? I would like an answer to the question. And before the enforcer says anything, here's my only statement on it. How come Russia hasn't won yet if they're doing so well? But enforcer, what say you?
My answer to that question would be the thousands of videos that have been shown on this channel over the 1,100 hours that we've been live on air, showing Russian soldiers flying through the sky, getting disemboweled, amongst many other things that we can hardly show here. And that would be my... did you just get rid of them?
Yeah, they were going to be funny and called me Enforcer Mutt, so they got gone for that.
That's a good. That's a funny one though. But
I gave them 3 chances that time. I was being extremely generous.
But that's the reason why I believe that the Ukrainians are doing incredibly well in blasting the Russians away, because if they weren't, how come the Russians haven't won? They've got to be inflicting high casualties on the Russians in an area like Bakhmut for them to be pushing every single day and making almost no ground. A lot of people must be getting completely obliterated because of that. And so with that, we are now going to let Jesus' disciple on into wherever the hell he's going, because he got banned, so I don't know where he's going. He'll probably go over to some other channel where most of our haters kind of just congregate, still waiting for a Discord message. But with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for support, Hokey Redneck, and allowing us to answer what I believe is a fairly straightforward question. And so with that, we are on to the final one before we get into the Northeast and the Bakhmut news.
All right, and the last one goes to Avari Mandubratis, who puts in a $25 donation and says, here is another improv skit. Matthew is a college student in an economic history class. Oh boy, I've never been in a class like that, but taught by a Bernie impersonator. Orange Man is the guest lecturer discussing the 2008 crash. Matthew pelts Orange Man with questions. Go. Man, I don't know how I can't get political with that one, though.
Oh man, we'll try and keep, well, we will keep it apolitical. There's no try in that, because that's what this whole channel's about. But I thank you for the support of Ari, and we're gonna try our best. And so let's begin. Wait, what was the prompt again? Like, what are they talking about?
I was about to say, like, what was the pause for? Let's see. It was, I'm a college student in the economic history class. The professor's a Bernie impersonator. And Orange Man is guest lecturing today about the 2008 crash.
All right. You see, what happened is the top 1% of this country own half of this country's wealth. And when the balloon money exploded, and it exploded terribly, the whole economy went down. And the rich guys, they were fine. Listen, Bernie,
The rich guys weren't fine. I filed for bankruptcy, I think around that time, and it was not that good. It was pretty bad, I gotta admit, but it wasn't as bad as the seat in Rosie O'Donnell's 18-wheeler. That thing's crushed. But it was... Listen, Donald, you don't have an idea of what you're talking about. I dropped a mixtape back in the 70s. I know what I'm talking about. I'm the real deal. Also, I need your support once again. Bernie's got to run 1 million ads on YouTube because, you know, that's what I do. Oh, just shut up real quick.
Hey, Orange Man. How'd you survive the 2008 crash? What strategy did you use?
Oh man, it was terrible. I get it. Many people were saying that it was pretty bad, and I gotta agree. I mean, it was bad. People were saying out there it was bad. Balloon mortgage, and I would tell you honestly, it was easy for me. I completely knew how to survive the recession, and people around me were saying, "Wow, this is incredible. There's no way that Trump has survived this economic recession so well." But I did, and I did it great. It was wonderful. I gotta tell you,
wonderful for him.
I gotta tell you, that was a good question because I don't know if he actually survived that or not. And so we're gonna ask Diddy.
Bernie, you're not innocent either. Chill out.
Okay, listen. All right, you pissed me off. I'm going to my summer home. How about that? Oh man.
Oh, it's so hard not to get political. I really can't say anything else, or otherwise I'll be delving into it. But
like it's really hard to even make jokes because some of these jokes are so close to getting into what has been brought up before in the political sphere. It's really hard to do that. But I thank you so much once again for the support of Ari. That support helps this channel to keep on running, and I hope that we were able to do that fairly well and get you a good laugh tonight. And of course, we do those for fun. If someone has a gripe about that, we did that on request. We don't really do them a lot anymore in the middle of the stream. We really only save those for requests from folks if they want one. And so with that, we're going to be moving on out of this question segment. Thank you so much once again to all three of y'all. So much once again for the support, because y'all help us to keep this channel running. And without y'all helping us, it would have never been possible this far. And so, you know, and to be honest, whenever y'all ask for something like that, considering y'all are supporting us to keep it running, I'm more than happy to do it. Y'all like it. It's funny. And it's also fun for me to do. So with that, we're now moving on from the question segment and on into the northeastern area, which has been completely devoid of action tonight. There's been nothing that's happened here again. And if we look over the past 24 hours, what do you know? Nothing happened. So, yeah, that's it. There's not really a lot to add. But we're going to be moving back into the Kreminna area because once again today, we didn't see a BMPT Terminator operating in Kreminna. That's actually yesterday's news. And for some reason, I think... I've got to be honest with y'all, the reason why I'm stuttering a lot tonight and kind of messing up like that is because I'm absolutely exhausted right now and I'm hardly mentally keeping everything together. Like, you know, I'm not saying I'm having a mental breakdown or anything. It's just that my mental exhaustion is to such a level, it's really hard to keep covering the news as a sewing machine kind of thing. So if I do that again, please bear with me tonight. I don't mean to do that and I apologize completely, but we're going to be moving on down into the Bakhmut area where the news actually was tonight, and in the area of Partisan where we saw a mouse riding on the front of a Ukrainian T-72. Ratatouille! 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 This tank is so freaking loud! Ratatouille! Look, it's having like a little dust bath and everything.
I didn't know Vladimir Putin rode on tanks.
I didn't know that Tekashi 6ix9ine rode on tanks. I can't believe there's a rat up there.
Oh, goodness.
Verdago said, "Oh shit, a rat!"
Oh no, not that meme again.
Oh man, and I guess he... Wait a minute, did that thing just run into the tank treads? No. Oh, no, he's just wandering further up. He didn't run into the tank treads, but he looks okay, and it's neat to know that they have a little friend down there. Ratatouille, ratatouille. And so that we're now going to be moving on from that little clip, and now we're going to be getting into the actual war, starting off in the area of the village of Rostolivka, the old Ukrainian village of Rostolivka. We're going to go in here today looking for Soviet statues. And we can see what happens when the Russians hit the Ukrainians with them $5 bunkers. Right there. Look, there's one of them. Didn't help him. Also, we're going to have to mute that because while the music is absolutely bussin', can't play it. Also, we can see they're riding on top of an M113, which makes this video even cooler.
What do you know?
What do you know? So with that, that's the end of the video. And I gotta say, quite impressive. Quite impressive, to say the least. And the $5 bunkers from the dollar store didn't help them out all too much. We're now going to be moving on to the next clip of news from the Soledar area, where we saw Russian artillery get slammed. Let's see what kind of music is playing. Some kind. And we can see that it said Wagner soldiers, once again advancing in a large group like they're in the First World War. They're laying down in the fields, crawling around like little babies, and they're about to be treated like babies. We see them shooting in the air, and now we can see the first mortar rounds starting to hit their position. Ooh! Ooh! Oh, God! It's like advancing in an open field is like the worst thing to do! Oh, man, they're getting turned into mincemeat. Oh, man, look at that. Tragic. Tragic, to say the least. It's like they have no training, no skill. You know, and then that Jesus disciple guy in there is going to sit there and say, how in the world do you believe the Russians are getting hit that badly? And we see a single video like this where there's like at least 60 guys who have been turned into 200s in this field. And you know, people still ask, where are the casualties? I don't believe it, man. We now see a Wagner vehicle moving, and now we can see a Wagner vehicle, I believe, exploding. We now see some following the manual and actually roll. Actually, those are airburst rounds being fired by the Ukrainian artillery. Wow. And this video is very laggy for some reason. I'm sorry. If y'all see that on y'all's end, y'all think it's the stream lagging. It's actually the video lagging. Apparently, it's just very bad in FPS, but looks like a lot of Russians got the taste of airburst. It's kind of like starburst, but a lot more deadly.
Is that guy injured, or they just that guy's injured?
Oh yeah, that guy's pulling out that old my leg. Oh, another airburst. Man. And it's like starburst and airheads got mixed together. What do you get out of that? Airburst. And so with that, that's the end of the clip. But very nice to see that the 45th Artillery Brigade was able to make sure that the Wagner forces were able to contribute to those high losses we saw today. A huge thanks to the Wagner group for always pumping those numbers up. Because back in the day, when they were only losing about 400, 500 guys, which was about average for the British or the Americans every single day of World War II, those were just amateur numbers. They had to pump them up, and the Wagner unit stepped forward and they said, we can do it, and they just started racking those numbers up sky high. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into the area of Blahodatne, where we saw Madyar back at work again. Y'all know Madyar can't take a day off, and today he's got something interesting to show us. And so, here's the clip.
26 січня, день дуже раненько почався, дуже багато різних задач. Це, до речі, екіпаж Мадяр 9 працює. По декотрим із епізодів не можу показувати щось більш суттєво, або виконуються певні спецзавдання, то зроблю свідку нарізочку, бо не знаю, до якого епізоду доколупатися, щоб привернуло вашу увагу. І останній час з тим тиском трохи графік так змістився і потребує великої...
Did you see the subtitles? Noises. Yeah, RC plane noises. That's like, dude, those are like those subtitles where it's like, well, I think we're going to have to go to the holiday of Dias los Martes. And then it just says speaks in Spanish in the subtitles. It's like, thank you, that's very helpful.
Yes.
And there it goes again.
Oh my god.
I think Madyar has a blast making these videos.
It's Kradunsi.
Oh, thieves.
We see the Russians scurrying like ratatouille, ratatouille.
Oh wait, they're stealing stuff from civilians right now?
Yeah. They're going through and looting the abandoned houses for anything they can find.
It's like a speed loot, too. They're running in fast.
Man, this is that Tarkov speed run on Lighthouse.
Тих паханів, що
Oh,
тут
gosh.
відбувається. Полонений розповів, що їм зараз трекери вагнерівцям роздають всім, щоб слідкувати, щоб вони не філонили. От тут точка імплементації трекерів у пукани. То того у них так і рвуться ті пукани, бо батарейки на морозі не витримують та взриваються. 3 постріли ми виділили на той клуб по інтересам. Бабах!
Wow, that was a nice shot.
Отой був
They started
кращий
off with a
трьох.
good shit, a good hit. I was about to say good
Wow.
shot and hit at the same time.
Пуканів там так
That came out different.
підірвало
Yeah, that
тих
came out
хробаків,
wrong.
щоб зділо аж через екран. Йдемо далі. До речі, 3 роздіті прямо розбіглися в різні кутки. 2 з тих 5 не з'явилися назовні. Може живі, може підгандушнуло, може хитнуло. Наш то показує, крові нема. Та ж так, показує, що різні моделі впливу на хробачню бувають. Не все ж на голову кидати чи в прямому полі лупити. Вон, дивись, то хробачьо вештає від двору до двору.
I like how the Russians have eventually evolved from being orcs to now they're just worms. Everyone calls them worms now.
Нічого не лишиться.
I kind of like orcs better. Worms is kind of weak.
І виявляти концентрації. Це така окрема...
Dang, what a barrage! Oh my god!
Виконувати
They're barraging the entire
в
tree line.
насиченому хробачйом. Цікаво.
Interesting.
Як завжди, сьогодні бігали розлючені, але тепер вже чіповані хробаки Вагнера у ті свої псевдоштурми. І відповідним чином утилізувалися.
Look at these guys. Well, they're all in one spawn group. It's bad mistake. Bad mistake.
Вихочівці. Класична дев'ятка, де там та указ.
Oh, he's looking for his pointer.
He's like, where's the car antenna?
О, біжуть.
Oh, they're grouping up. Bad mistake. Terrible idea. Oh, look at him.
Саме так то виглядає пересування хробача.
Look at that guy. He almost shot his friend in the head right there on film. Watch, look. He's aiming his gun. He's crawling. He's going to fire, like, literally right past his head. Right here. Pew! Like, right in front of him. Dang!
Виходячи на таку відкриту поверхню, ті хробаки, як правило, собі купують квиток в одну сторону. Вже в звичній манері хробачня по дронам стріляла, а ми по ним кидали, а вони тікали. О, до речі, вчорашнього ж пукана димящого треба знайти можливість показати, а то так і уйде в історію.
Big old group. They're still in a massive group. And I see them scurrying along. Ratatouille! Ratatouille! And they're getting so close to each other. Now they're in a literal huddle. And we see the bomblet being moved around.
Не знають, як бігти.
They're getting together for a board meeting down there.
Лошари. Скільки їх там? 8.
Fellas, today I've noticed that the Wagner stocks are dropping rapidly. I think there's a hostile takeover going on.
Але міняють пріоритети.
Oh, nice one.
Вони замість того, щоб бігти туди, куди збирались, 4, 6, 8, то вони
The Russians are probably so dumb, they're probably yelling out, all right, folks, group up.
All right, everyone, stick together, hold hands. We're moving up to the front lines. Make sure to hold hands. Don't let go. That's probably what they're saying.
Група хробаків. Думали,
Meanwhile, the Ukrainians are singing, clean up, everybody clean up, as they turn the light button on the Mavic.
Каже. Ну і що?
Man.
І стрілкотня, як звично.
Look, they're shooting at the drone. They found it finally.
Близько. Писки тих, хто стріляє.
You see, I'm just saying, if that guy had a shotgun, he'd probably be able to hit that drone. Probably.
Maybe.
Allegedly.
О.
He's taking his time down there.
Ще один. Знову каска впала.
His helmet fell off.
Дивіться, знову каска впаде. Класика. Бенц.
Oh, they really are dumb as rocks. Like, that's not exaggeration.
Ну і летить.
Also, did you notice that all of them are wearing shush helmets? You know, those old Cold War era Russian helmets? They're all wearing them.
That's probably the best they can get.
I actually saw a good video. Did you see it? It came out recently on Grantham about the 6B-47 Ratnik helmet that the Russians supposedly have as standard issue in the army today.
I'll have to check it out. I haven't seen it.
So they did the ballistics tests on it, and they found out that the best it can protect you against is anything less than a 44 Magnum. A 44 Magnum will put someone unconscious and in a coma if it hits them on the head.
Wait, say that again. I didn't process that the first time.
If a 44 Magnum or larger hits that helmet, it's at least at the minimum going to put them in a coma from the concussion. Anything higher than that, it will go straight through.
Huh, I'm surprised it can deflect that. Like, even though it causes a concussion, it doesn't, like, penetrate the helmet?
No, well, I mean, like, if you watch the video, Matthew, like, the 44 Magnum hits, and it creates, like, a 2 or 3 inch dent on the other side of the helmet that would go straight into your skull. Like, it literally just turns into a giant press that smacks into your skull and, like, crushes it in, pretty much. So you would be messed up. You would practically be a vegetable for the rest of your life if a 44 Magnum hits you and you were wearing that helmet. Yeah, it didn't go through, but you would still be practically dead for all intents and purposes if you got hit like that. Especially with what Russian first aid and medics are like, you are dead at that point. You would just be left in that field to die. So fairly interesting, but I think honestly, and if Grantham watches this channel, I don't know if he does or doesn't. If you are watching right now, I would love for you to make a video on the shush helmet, so that way it can be shown, because this appears to be practically standard issue compared to the Ratnik, the 6B-47 at this point. That would be a very interesting one to show, because that is what the majority, if not half, of the Russian army is using at this point. So I think that would be pretty cool. And so with that, we're going to let the video continue.
Ой, рожевий, де там? О. Ай, не взірвався.
Oh, the bomblet didn't explode, but they all went running like roaches.
Розбігаємося, хробачня. Зустрічаємося в іншому місці. Хробаки знов перекурюють. Не помрете ви від свинцю, від табачного диму. І тут з'являється дрон. Вони його пасуть. Ми пасем його, дрон. Дрон пасе хробаків. Таке буває.
And we see that they're grouping up again in another little trench.
Але зафільмованим таке, погодьтеся, ви не бачили. Ось дрон. Дрон, що пасе за хробаками, за котрими пасем ми. Ось бандейка.
They're grouping up again.
Вони чують чужого дрона. Не нашого. І готуються його збивати. Чекають, коли з'явиться. О! Вон стріляє.
They're shooting again.
Всі видивляються, один лупить. І не тільки один, ще й цей. Ще й цей. А, цей в нас! О! Тут взагалі
There's 3 guys shooting at this drone, and none of them are even getting close to hitting it.
Що таке побачите? Дрон пасе ми пасем за штурмовиками. Штурмовики пасуть за дронами. Випасають чужого дрона. Ми пасем за чужим дроном, по нам стріляють, по чужому дрону стріляють. Всі вистрілилися, всі дрони цілі. Вон, ще один.
There are, wait, I was about to say there are now 3 drones, but there's still 2 and they can't shoot down either of them.
Перекурили, та й пішли далі. Довели ми ту групу до місця їх призначення.
Oh, we got a cam bot. Oh my god, that's been forever since we had one of those.
Артилерія. А ми передали ту групу у надійні руки аеророзвідки, саме бригади, котра по ним працювала.
I'll get it. I got it.
I got it. Oh, I think you unhit it.
Oh, wait. Dang it. No, we both hit it.
Біжуть, але це їх сектор, їм звідси повертатися не можна. То їх там ушатала наша артуха до ручки. Хіба завтра подивимося на тушки. Нікуди, звісно, хробаки не дінуться від мольфарів. О, класика. Побачимо.
Classica.
Показує, давай вали. Давай вали.
Or the
валам.
oldest phrase in the political playbook here in the U.S., Matthew, classic Americana.
Oh, that always
Nice.
cringes
I know,
to me.
I always
hear
hate that damn phrase.
Boom.
Oh!
Jaga,
Oh!
jaga.
Someone get the Lego breaking sound. No, 1 second, let me pull that up real quick. 1 second, y'all. Hang on. Y'all gonna have to wait for the comedic effect here on that one because Lego.
We need a soundboard with these sound effects on it where you can like click it, like
Yeah,
that Elgato Stream Deck thing.
We need like 5 different Among Us noises for whenever we point out something, so that way we can hit it and it goes bum bum or something like that. But let me get here we go. All right, so here we go.
А ти вали. Зараз збоку.
Dang it, I played the wrong point.
Boom.
You hear it?
Добре.
Yeah, I heard it. The timing was a little off though. It was hilarious.
Країни. Підлітає до хробачого копчика.
Oh, hello, worm.
Oh, I think that drone just made him into worms.
Он хробачела.
Phew.
Ну і зовсім повільно стріляє, відвертається.
Oh, everyone made the same sound at the same time. We all went, oh. Also, Neil McKee just said, what's a cambot? It's a good thing you don't know, and I hope you never really know what a cambot is. So don't ask around too much because I'm sure you'll regret knowing what it is. But we're going to let this keep going.
Привіт від Мольфара.
Oh, man, that guy did like the whole duck and everything. He should have been
Переходимо
okay.
до кульмінації. Це склад БК ворога. Великий. Пав. Отак він детонував тривалий проміжок часу.
Some smoldering remains, artillery hitting everything quite nicely.
Детонував і димів. Вон там. Блимає. Не можу розкривати багато подробиць, але чадило конкретно і тривало. Дивіться, яка сформована тяга. Така прям заглядіння. Ну, детонація ще попереду головна. Хоча не зберігся запис стартової детонації.
Oh, you see that the cook-off is beginning here at this ammo dump.
Добряче тут хробачня напхала. Детонує чітко і регулярно.
You know, I looked away from the screen for a second. Someone just said in the live chat, I looked away for the screen, came back, and everything had blown up. I was like, huh, okay. I was like, it's on fire now.
Тут знову щось шубовснуло, бо з новою силою почалося те.
And so I'll summarize the rest of this video because we're going to have to move on due to time constraints. But the ammo dump blew up. We pretty much watched that for the rest of the clip. If you do want to watch the remainder of it, you can go into the link in the description below on the stream, and you can find this map and go watch this video in its entirety. And so with that, we're going to be moving on. But I just saw a video, Matthew, while we were watching that, and this is why I looked away from the screen, that is really interesting to me. This is a video from 8 years ago from RC Model Geeks, where an angry farmer shot down a drone after it buzzed his farm animals, and watched the range at which the shotgun was able to shoot down the drone. That high up.
Oh. Did this happen in the U.S.?
Yes.
But that actually might be illegal to do that too.
But you see right there, that shotgun, even with that drone at that altitude, was able to take it down. And you could actually hear the reports of the shotgun in the video before it got hit. Listen to it again. and then it went down.
Yeah, that was pretty effective.
I'm telling you, I'm telling you, man. Well, the shotguns are usable, and they ought to start sending them over there. If that video isn't proof that you can shoot down a drone with some buckshot, I don't know what is. But with that, we're going to be moving on into the next clip of news further down the line in the area of Krasnohora, where we saw a Ukrainian soldier firing off an AGS.
Готовы еще добавить. Михайлович. Весь проход.
You hear the reports of the AGS in the distance, which we were waiting for that whole time. That's why it was quiet. You can see them listening in on radio to see if those rounds came in accurately. And it appears that they may not have, because we didn't see him start firing off a whole load of rounds. So with that, that's the end of the clip. But once again, interesting to see the AGS being used as a small mortar. We're now going to be moving on into the area of the center of the line, where we saw the battles in Bakhmut continuing.
Что?
We hear gunfire coming from all around the city as the smoke fills the air, making the battlefield a hellish place. We see this Ukrainian soldier firing his M4 into the, well, his AK actually, into the distance. And we hear that this firefight is really starting to kick off. We now see them moving to a new position, getting shot at. We hear the bullets bouncing off the ground as he moves into the next building. They're now moving upstairs. And that's the end of the clip, but we saw him about to fire out of the second-story window. With that, we're now going to be moving on into our next clip of news in the Bakhmut area, where we also saw more close combat being, occurring within the outskirts of the city.
Самый плотный контакт у нас был 10 сантиметров, коли наш хлопець подозвав, іди сюди, а він вибігає до нього вплотную, каже свой, він такой, да, русский.
Dang, what a story! Oh my god! So, the closest contact we had was 10 centimeters. When our guy called out, come here, he ran up to him, he said, are you Russian? The guy said yes, and then bang. Good lord. Alright.
Бах, а голова нафиг разлетілася, короче. Такий оце ти його подколол, конечно. От. Ну і там теж інших хлопців, там метрів 70 від нас дивимося, біжуть. Ми такі, парні, сюди, сюди. Вони такі, ладно, бігуть до нас, короче. Підбіжали, пацани вже, оп, все, отработали, покатилися туди. От. Так само групи, які намагалися до нас пройти, були на певній відстані, де мали бути наші смежники. Ми намагалися їх просто підзивати, ну, виходили, парні, йдіть сюди. От, вони до нас підходили, ми їх жмурили.
Wait, are the Russians that stupid? Like, that's not shocking or anything, but did you just hear this guy, man? He just said, like, coded up in these yellow armbands you're seeing in their own combat footage, they would just call out to you Russian units and just say, hey, come here. And they just run up to these guys clearly identified as Ukrainians and just shoot them.
Damn, yeah, they're that stupid.
Yeah, that's, man, that is bad. But with that, we're going to be moving on from that and into our next clip of news from Bakhmut, where we saw an MI-18 or an MI-8 or an I'm sorry, I'm getting the designations wrong. Here's a Ukrainian helicopter, it's probably like an MI-17 firing off its rockets.
Yeah! Мы тут нахуй охуели!
Now see it firing off its flares. This continues to move on.
Ми-24.
See the next helicopter coming up?
Ми-24. Він подальше же чуть будет. Опа! Инстаграм сразу, блядь.
Oh, wow. Dang,
Damn.
the Chad MI-24 just comes rounding the corner and it's just out of the blue. Look at that.
Куда ты, сука, стреляешь? Сейчас с тебя, сука, собью, блядь. Да. Це їм дали, пиздулей.
Those things are menacing, I gotta say.
Those things are, I gotta say, the scariest helicopter out there in terms of its looks. That's the end of the clip, but once again, pretty interesting little look at some MI-8s and also an MI-24. Now, I have seen some people asking about that last clip. Isn't that a war crime? No. Oddly enough, because it sounds really weird when you hear them just saying, hey, come here, and then they run over to him and they shoot him. That, interestingly enough, isn't a war crime because, one, the Azov units were not identifying themselves as Russian soldiers or impersonating them. They just called out to the enemy and said, hey, come over here, and for some reason they were dumb enough to run over to him. And they didn't surrender, and so they're still technically engaged in a firefight, and you can get them. So, yeah. That may be a little bit interesting to some of y'all, and that's just how it works. So maybe the Russians ought to recognize the tape and identifying markers a little bit better if they don't want to get plastered by the next day. And so with that, we're going to be moving down into the southern flank near Klishkivka, where we saw the Azov soldiers in the trenches around here. We can see them sitting in the snow, having a laugh. Once again, incredibly well kitted, especially compared to the Russians we saw on film in Madyar's video. And we can see them here around the Land Rover Defender. Really cool vehicle, once again provided by the British. And then in the last clip, posing for another picture in a machine gun nest. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into the next bit of news. And also, I just saw someone say, it's a war crime. How? Explain to me how. There's no such thing in war as you can't call out to the enemy and say, hey, come here. It's their fault if they listen. Like, at no point did the Azov say, we dressed up like the Wagner soldiers have that we've seen on film that we talked about before, where they actually killed some Ukrainians because they dressed up as a Ukrainian soldier and then ran into their foxhole and shot them. The Azov wasn't doing that. They just yelled out, hey, you, come over here, dressed up as Ukrainians. The Russians came over, dressed up as Russians, and they got them. So, sadly, like Ex-Mojo said, the Geneva Convention doesn't cover being stupid. It only covers being, I guess you could say, deceitful, which they're not being deceitful at all. So that we're now moving on into the next bit of news down in the next area in the Donetsk region, where we saw a sapper and his vehicle got hit by the Russians today.
Fuck's sake. Thought so. Don't think we'll be driving this one back tonight. Fuck my life. This is the bastard here. Little crater there from artillery and a fucking grad.
Man, that thing hit close.
Fuck's sake.
Like 20 yards. That was a fairly close rocket. And with that, that's the end of the clip. But once again, the sappers are still having a really tough time behind the lines, although they're not directly on it. And so with that, we're now going to be moving down into the area of Prvomaiske, or Prvomaiske, I believe it. Yeah, Prvomaiske, where we saw some Belgian M113s being spotted. And that's all there is. It's just a picture. Now we know that the Belgians provided their M113s as well, and that's pretty neat to see. We actually, I think, may have seen one of these in a video earlier. So with that, we're now going to be moving on from that neat little bit of news and on down into the area of Marinka, where we saw two interesting clips today. First, a BMP exploded on a mine. Also, we got to mute that. We can see the BMP right there hitting the mine and going kablooey and going into the oblivion. We now see the next one also going into the oblivion as well, as parts of it begin flying across the street.
That poor sucker didn't stand a chance out in the open like that.
Nah, and now we can see the remainder of the soldiers that lived. They're running out of the BMP. One of them tripped and fell. He'll be taking a nap, most likely. It's been a tiresome day. And we see one
slow motion or something, or are they like,
Ooh!
Oh! Did you see that?
Did you see that?
Yeah,
right
I
there?
saw it.
Oh, no.
Damn.
Man, they got double dipped. They double dipped that ship. They got the BMP and they got the... Dang. Anyways, we're going to be moving on from that. I can't say what happened there, but y'all can see it. So with that, we're going to be moving on from that clip, but an impressive little mining operation right there. And we're now going to watch this T-90M that was in operation in the area of Marinka. You see the drone flying around. You can see that Marinka has literally been leveled. The only thing that's left is a faint outline of the streets. And as it flies around, we can see a tank firing here at a building. And it appears that that is the T-90M we're looking for. Someone's about to say, that was a war crime. They didn't tell them to surrender.
Is getting shot, well, not saying it was anything we saw, but is getting shot in the back, is that improper or something?
No, that's been done ever since the beginning of war. Retreating soldiers off the field, they're still enemy combatants, so you got to wipe them out. The only time you can't shoot someone is if they're actually surrendering. Like, if they've thrown their gun to the ground and they have their hands up in the air and they're saying, don't shoot, I surrender. If you shoot them, then that's a war crime, but if they're turning around and running away, that's not. Because then that means that hopping in a trench while everyone's looking one way and you're behind them and shooting them in the back, then that would also be a war crime, and it isn't. But with that, we can see a T-90M, very rare because we've only seen T-90Ms in operation around the areas of Kremenna and also a little bit more north than that. This is the first one we've spotted this far to the south. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that clip in Marinka. Once again, the battles are still continuing heavily there. And now we're moving on into Volodar. Of course, heavy assaults are still occurring here in the town of Volodar, and we saw that more TOS strikes occurred today and were committed by the Russians against the small town. You can see the TOS right there firing. You'll see the TOS still firing. See them hitting the buildings. We don't see any Ukrainian soldiers, though. They may be inside the buildings. We can't really tell for certain, but we can't confirm any losses here on this video because the Russians don't show any. Of course, this unfortunate thing about what a TOS does to someone. A TOS is a thermobaric weapon, and so it pretty much liquefies your organs if you were in the blast radius. Even if you don't get, I guess you could say, hit by the blast itself, just how a thermobaric works, it does that to you. So it's pretty brutal. And so that's the end of the clip. And we're now going to be moving on into Volodar itself, where we saw the Battle of Volodar continuing today, and the shelling that the Russians are committing against the town, once again with the TOS, to try and clear it out. And so here's the video. And we can see the TOS hitting here on the outskirts of town. Volodar is a very, very small town in context to a place like Bakhmut. This thing is tiny. At least in the area it covers. Because you're looking right here, this building, the beginning of the town, and over there, that's the end of the town. And it's about that wide as well.
And the TOS shoots thermobarics, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. I was making a poll. Had to make sure.
Now, thermobarics, while being brutal, are not a war crime to be used against enemy combatants. It is a war crime, of course, to use any weapon against citizens, or civilians, as they're called usually in the rules of war. And that's just a known fact. If you shoot someone with an AK, that's a citizen, that's a war crime. If you hit them with a thermobaric, it's also a war crime. But I find that to be questionable, and I find the use of thermobarics by any military to be somewhat inhumane, especially considering what they do to people. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from this little clip in the Volodar area and down into the Pavlivka region, where we saw another Russian tank was captured during the ongoing battle. We see this T-72B3 being used to haul away this T-72B. Quite the find. We got to thank the Russians once again for helping the Ukrainians to be supplied with enough tanks to keep carrying on this war, because without the Russians, where in the world would the tanks come from? And so with that, we're now moving on from that little clip of news today in the Volodar region, and with that, that is all of the news we have across the world and in Ukraine. And so with that, it's time for us to move into Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 339 of the war. And so without further ado, here is the President of Ukraine.
Speech.
Speech.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Сьогодні ми починаємо марафон чесності, який буде спрямований на те, щоб очистити керівництво міжнародних олімпійських структур від лицемірства та будь-яких намагань витягнути у світовий спорт представників держави-терориста. Не можна не бути розчарованим заявами чинного очільника Міжнародного олімпійського комітету Томаса Баха. Я неодноразово з ним говорив і так і не почув, як він збирається захищати спорт від пропаганди війни, якщо поверне російських спортсменів у міжнародні змагання. Не буває нейтральності, коли триває така війна. І ми знаємо, як часто тиранії пробують використовувати спорт заради своїх ідеологічних інтересів. Очевидно, що будь-який нейтральний прапор російських спортсменів заплямований кров'ю. Я не хочу розбиратися в тому, що саме стало мотивом для пана Баха, щоб просувати таку ініціативу. Але ми зробимо все, щоб світ захистив спорт від політичного та будь-якого іншого впливу держави-терориста, який просто неминучий, якщо російські спортсмени братимуть участь у змаганнях. І тим більше у Паризькій Олімпіаді. Українські спортсмени змушені захищати життя своїх близьких та свободу нашого народу від російської агресії. Російські удари забрали життя сотень українців та українок, які могли збагатити світовий спорт своїм талантом. Росія повинна зупинити агресію і терор. І лише після цього можна буде говорити про російську участь в контексті олімпійського руху. Олімпійські принципи і війна фундаментально протилежні одне одному. Ситуація на фронті, і зокрема на Донеччині, під Бахмутом та Вугледаром, продовжує бути надзвичайно гострою. Окупанти не просто штурмують наші позиції, вони свідомо і методично знищують ці міста і села навколо них. Артилерію, авіацію, ракетами. Російська армія не має дефіциту засобів знищення. І зупинити її можна лише силою. Наші воїни, які тримають оборону на напрямках на Донеччині, справжні герої. Я дякую кожному з вас, хлопці, за хоробрість. І, до речі, запрошую пана Баха у Бахмут, щоб він побачив на власні очі, що нейтральності не існує. Поспілкувався сьогодні зі студентами, викладачами та випускниками коледжу Європи в Натоліні та Брюгге. Це особлива освітня інституція, яка готує фахівців для роботи в європейських структурах та з європейськими структурами. Саме таких фахівців, яких ми потребуємо, зокрема для повноцінної інтеграції нашої держави з Європейським Союзом. Українці вже навчаються за програмами коледжу Європи, і ми вже почали створення такого коледжу в Україні. І це підкреслює наше прагнення повністю якнайшвидше інтегруватися з ЄС. А також, я впевнений, це дозволить українцям допомогти захисту свободи, європейських цінностей як в нашому регіоні, так і у всій Європі. Я почув від пані ректорки коледжу в Натоліні, що зараз у вільної Європи саме українське обличчя. І такі слова багато значать. Незмінно будемо робити все, щоб збільшувався наш потенціал у відносинах з ЄС, зокрема кадровий потенціал. Саме тому нам потрібен свій український коледж Європи, і він буде. Сьогодні ж маємо вагому новину з Бельгії, країни, в якій розташовані керівні структури Євросоюзу. Є рішення уряду Бельгії про пакет підтримки для нашої оборони. Те, що посилить ППО, те, що збільшить мобільність наших військових на полі бою. Я дякую за цю підтримку. Я дякую усім країнам, усім лідерам, які цього тижня своїми рішеннями довели, що російська агресія зазнає поразки. І ще одне. Сьогодні вранці у Києві біля Минори у Бабиному Яру відбулася церемонія вшанування пам'яті усіх жертв Голокосту. Сьогодні Міжнародний день пам'яті жертв Голокосту. І навіть у такий час, у час повномасштабної війни, Україна разом з усім цивілізованим світом відчуває і розділяє біль, який досі залишається у світі від злочинів нацизму. Ми пам'ятаємо. А отже, ми протидіємо намаганням зла повернутись. Я дякую всім, хто захищає людяність разом з Україною. Я дякую всім нашим воїнам. Слава Україні!
So with that's the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 339 of the news of the war in Ukraine, and I thank you all so much once again for watching tonight's news. If you did enjoy, please make sure to hit the like button. Also make sure to subscribe, because those two things help out this channel a great deal in continuing our coverage of the news. And of course, I thank you all so much once again for watching. Of course, I have to say this, at this point, we may as well be entering a totally different stream. We're going to be going into the question segment, where we're going to be addressing all of the super chats that have been sent in tonight and thanking everyone for supporting this channel and helping it to keep going. And we're also going to be addressing all of the live chats as well. So if you were here for the Ukraine war news, that part is largely over. We'll be answering questions that are most likely Ukraine war related, but we may be going down rabbit holes that may not have anything to do with it. So with that, we're moving on into that. And also, Matthew, I saw that comment that you responded to. You sat there and asked that guy, Colburn Freeze. He sat there and said, all that said, the way you talk about, make fun of, and degrade the Russian people shows a complete lack of humanity. Do you think they afforded the same opportunity as us to change how they are able to live? If you really aspire to get into politics, you should know very well how comments from the past can end a political career before it even begins. Well, the thing is, I have a feeling that animosity towards the Russian government will probably do fairly well a couple of decades into the future, because it's done as well for about 100 years at this point, and I don't think that's changing anytime soon.
And also the people have to bear some responsibility for what the government's doing. We know that Putin is basically a dictator, but I mean, the people cannot be totally off the hook either, because they could rise up and, you know, at least attempt to overthrow the government.
And one thing we've seen from 1420 is that a decent amount of Russians actually do support this war, and a lot of polling done by Radio Free Europe also shows the same thing. Around 70% of the Russian populace supports this war at this very moment. So I don't think that's really out of the question. And another thing that I've seen, and of course I'm not going to get into politics, but I will talk about it generally, is that comments from the past don't really affect anyone. Everyone always likes to say that, but comments like this, I can come up with 1 million on any politician right now that completely contradict what they say and do and what they got elected on right now from every single party in the United States in its history, and they still got elected. So if things change, also I don't think you understand that things can also change. Like in 40 years' time, we may end up being allies with the Russians, and they could have totally changed. Their government could have been overthrown. They could actually have a proper democracy. They might be in our sphere of influence. Things change. Right now, the Russians are not our friends, and I'm not going to pretend like they are, because maybe 20 years in the future or 40 years in the future, they might be, and then it'll be in vogue to like them. That's not what we're living in right now. We're living in a world where the Russians want to kill us. They want to kill the Ukrainians. They want to be the conquerors of the world, and I'm not a big fan of that, and I'm not big a fan of a lot of Russians supporting that in Russia as well. But a huge credit to the 30% that don't, and also the Freedom of Russia Legion that continues to fight against their very own government and their very own people. And so with that, we are going to be moving on into the polls. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and we have 4 more polls to address. And the very first one I put up says, which is more important regarding an Air Force? Is it high quality training or advanced aircraft? And before I go into the answers, obviously that both would be great if you could have both, but hypothetically speaking, which one is more important? It looks like 84% said high quality training, 12% said advanced aircraft, and 5% said unsure. And I'm definitely going to go with the first option. I think training is pretty much everything. It's important to have good aircraft, but you know, having the most high-tech recent like jet isn't going to help you very much if your pilots are trash. But Enforcer, what say you?
1 second, I have to pull up this question.
It's nonsensical, but it's been a statement for a while.
I think one can have their cake and eat it. Why not have good training and advanced aircraft? That's what the Air Force has done. We have great aircraft and great training. If I had to pick one or the other, I would say definitely training is probably the more important of the two, because while advanced technology is great, if the pilot doesn't really know how to utilize or properly I guess you could say, use these I guess you could say, advantages to his advantage, it doesn't really mean much. But I believe in the idea of why not both? Why not have great training and great aircraft at the same time? And I know that wasn't an option on the poll, Matthew, and you hate when people always say, what about that option? You know, I'm sorry to be one of those people, but I think good training and good aircraft are the best thing to have, but if you had to pick one or the other, I would say training would most likely win out. And so with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one. Also, I gotta say this again, you know, I understand that, like, if you eat the cake, you can't have it, but to eat the cake, you have to have the cake, so you can have the cake and eat it too, because you have to have the cake to eat the cake. I don't get the point of that saying. Like, when you really think about it, that is a paradoxical, like, statement. You know, like, you can interpret it either way, but the way I interpret it is, you have to have a cake to eat the thing. That's like saying you can't have a car and drive it too. Yeah, you can. That's the point of owning one. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next poll.
All right. And the next poll said, except for the world wars, is Ukraine the most widely supported nation in any war in modern history? It looks like 82% said yes, 9% said unsure, and 9% said no. There are other instances. I would say that Ukraine is definitely one of the most widely supported nations, and the support, to me, seems unprecedented. But, Enforcer, what do you think?
I would definitely agree with that. We have never seen a world so united behind a single country in its aim to remain free in modern history. Like, for example, the U.S. invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan was criticized heavily by a decent majority of the Western world when both of those occurred. Although there was some fairly good justifications for it, there were also fairly good strikes against that. So we never saw a really united world on the invasion of Iraq or Afghanistan, except for the very onset of it. Like the first year or so, it was really united, but it dropped off quickly. And yeah, I mean, like, just moving on from that, not trying to go through every historical instance, I can't think of a modern war where everyone in the world has largely sided with a single country in one side of this war. Really interesting thing we have going on here, and I think it says a lot about how wrong it really is for the Russians to be doing what they're doing, considering that no one in the world, except for a small number of countries that are already considered rogue or evil, see the Russian side of the argument. And so with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next poll says, do you take issue with Ukrainian soldiers calling out, come here, and shooting the enemy combatants? It looks like 72% said no, it's fair game. 16% said yes, that seems wrong. And 12% said unsure. And for me, I'm going to say, technically speaking, it is not a war crime. So in reality, it's fair game. But there is a part of me that kind of, I don't know, cringes at it a little bit. And, you know, it's up to everybody's own opinion. But to me, it seems a little bit on the fence. But it is fair game in reality. But Enforcer, what say you?
You know what the Japanese used to do in the Second World War?
They did a lot.
They did a lot. But you know what they would do in particular whenever fighting American troops? Is they would find their best English-speaking soldier in their unit, and they would tell him, you have been chosen by the Divine Emperor to go on a mission. You're going to travel across the no man's land at night to an American foxhole, and you're going to go up and say, hey, pal, how are you doing? And you're going to kill the first American you can find. And that's why the Americans, specifically in the Pacific, started coming up with passwords that had L's in them. Because, interestingly enough, much like how Germans cannot pronounce the word squirrel in English, native Japanese speakers have a really hard time, and this was to America's advantage at that time in the war, pronouncing L's properly. They pronounced them as R's. So passwords would have something like Lollapalooza in it, because that would come out by a Japanese person who could speak fairly well English, but still, you know, native Japanese speaker. They would say something like Lollapalooza, which would get them shot. And so that's why we started to come up with passwords in the Pacific, because the Japanese would sit there in the cover of night and try and speak in perfect English, so that way an American would think it was another American soldier, and then they would get in that foxhole and they would kill them. So that, and honestly, to the Japanese credit, seems questionable, but that wasn't breaking any rules of war. And, you know, they were, the American thought it was another American soldier, but it was really a Japanese soldier. So that was just bad luck on his end, much like with the Russians in this war right here. It's really just bad luck that the Russians are so stupid. Well, it's not really bad luck, it's stupidity on their end, that they can see them in broad daylight, clearly identified as a Ukrainian unit, and they yell, "Hey, you, come over here," and they just run over to them. Why would you do that? You know, like, that wouldn't make any sense. It's like...
Yeah, it almost seems so stupid. It's almost unbelievable. It makes you wonder if they could actually see the Ukrainians' markings or not, because the Russians are pretty dumb, but I mean, that's like a whole another level of dumb.
Well, you would have to, because we saw a little bit of their combat footage in that clip. You know, not the parts where they shot them, but we saw the parts leading up to it, and they were taped up. Their helmets were almost solid yellow. They had yellow armbands on every single arm. I mean, like, it would be impossible to not tell that those guys were Ukrainian soldiers. At that point, that's really just bad luck on them. If they're not smart enough to see that they're wearing yellow armbands and they're Ukrainian soldiers, that is just tough luck. That's not a war crime at all. It of course seems kind of questionable to... It's not even deceiving them, though, because they clearly know you're a Ukrainian soldier, and then you just yell, "Hey, come here." That's not even deceiving them. They're just listening to you because they're so stupid they believe that for some reason you're a... Wait a minute. What if the Russians think that's a Russian unit that is faking a Ukrainian unit? So when they call out, "Hey, come over here," they think it's one of their guys impersonating a Ukrainian soldier, and that's why they get shot.
That could be it. But these guys could also be conscripts, and they're not well trained at all. And it's possible that they think maybe they're saying "come here" as in, like, you know, come out to surrender. That's another possibility.
Yeah, that might be.
I mean, to me, that's why I'm a little on the fence about it. It seems like, given the little training that these people receive, especially if they're conscripts, it seems like it's kind of like shooting fish in a barrel to an extent.
Yeah, but then again, those little fish in a barrel, if you give them a chance, they will pop a bullet clean through your skull. And so
That's true too.
And so, you know, it's a war after all, and you've got to win it. And while it seems like they ought to be smarter than to just walk up to a Ukrainian unit and get shot, if that's the way the Ukrainians end up fighting the conscripts because they're too dumb to recognize an enemy unit, at least in their perspective, then I guess that's just unfortunate for them. But with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right. So the final poll, the fourth one says, are the tossed thermobaric missiles one of the most brutal weapons currently being used in the war? It looks like 58% said yes, 27% said no, and 14% said unsure. On this one, I'm going to have to go with yes. I think the toss, just by the description of what it does, seems very nasty. It's definitely unusual, and I don't think it should be used. But Enforcer, what say you?
Thermobarics are actually used by everyone. We actually have thermobarics here in the U.S. military in the form of the Moab. And I'm going to be honest with you, seeing and hearing what it does to soldiers as far as the toss, I feel like that ought to eventually make it into the outlawed category of weapons worldwide, because that is a brutal way to kill soldiers and maybe civilians as well if it hits some of them. And I think that that should be something much like poison gas that is banned the world over. So I would say it's actually quite barbaric, and I'm not really a big fan of thermobaric weapons. And so with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and let's see here. Let me end that one real quick. The control panel is being awfully slow. There we go. It finally got rid of it.
Matthew,
all
you
right.
hate the control panel. Like, the
Yeah.
whole thing is like so laggy and slow. They need to upgrade that thing. But I
They
think
do.
we're on to the
But
questions.
anyways, and yes, we are on to the questions. We're on to the super chats, and it looks like first up, we're going to have a $20 super chat from Santiago Flores, who says, "Hey, good evening for the whatever fund. Also, I'm a bit concerned that U.S. troops have wait a minute, hold on, let me see here. Also, I'm a bit concerned that U.S. troops have to close in Poland to support any maintenance on U.S. equipment that might become a target of a stupid orc attack or misguided round."
And I thank you so much for the support, Santiago Flores. And to answer that, I'm not concerned about that too much, because we actually have deployed Patriot missile defense systems in Poland. And so if another stray rocket, either from Ukraine, Russia, whoever, somehow flies over the border, we should be able to intercept it and shoot it down. And also, if they hit American soldiers, it's on. And the Russians are not going to even chance hitting them because they know that at that point, it will practically be war. Unlike in Syria, I believe when the Russians, wasn't it the Russians, Matthew, who dropped some missiles near an airbase that we controlled? And it was like,
believe
oh,
so.
whoopsies. It's like, it was kind of like a little standoff thing. And in Poland, it would not be the case because that's NATO territory, and the Polish, even though that aren't really their own soldiers, considering it hit NATO soldiers inside the NATO alliance within a protected area under Article 5, they would probably invoke Article 4 and then bring up Article 5 because of that. So I wouldn't worry about that too much, Santiago, because I'm sure it will be fairly safeguarded due to the implications of hitting them. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Santiago. You've been around here forever. And of course, without viewers like you supporting this channel, it wouldn't have been possible. And so thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one. And we're also going to put that towards the pizza fund because I'm feeling pizza.
Hey! All right. So up next, we have a $20 super chat from Chip Kerwan. He says, please do poll. Should USA take out Taliban armored weapons, etc., with missiles so they don't end up in the hands of Lucien Putin? Ignoring politics and diplomacy, are there any critical bars per international law?
I don't think there are that many critical bars in doing that, but I don't really think we need to because a lot of the equipment we've seen over there is passive kind of stuff like Humvees, Blackhawks. None of those things are really weaponized, and they're not going to be adding a whole lot if the Russians bought them. I mean, it's a Humvee, and while they're okay, they're not, going to be like war changing or anything. Or a Blackhawk isn't either. It's just a helicopter. So I would say I don't think we need to do that. It would also put us on bad terms again with the Taliban, and the Taliban could start trying to commit terrorist attacks in the United States again if we did that. And in the prospects of not really trying to rock the boat too much, and I know you're saying not political or diplomatic or anything like that, but I still got to think in a political or diplomatic fashion here. I don't really feel like it would be all too worth it. However, I could be wrong. We could have left some stuff over there that shouldn't have been left over there. I would have to go through the list of everything we left and look through and see if there was. But off the top of my head, I don't think there's anything in Afghanistan that is that crucial or critical that we would need to go on a bombing campaign to destroy the stuff. But a fairly good question, and I got to thank you so much once again for the support, helping this channel to keep on running, and also giving us a really good question. In case y'all didn't know, we left so much equipment behind in Afghanistan that a lot of it's just sitting around and dry rotting because there's so much the Taliban can't even use all of it. So they're pretty well stocked, at least in the short term, until that stuff breaks down so badly it's not usable at all. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support, and I hope we address that question fairly well.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from none other than Psyops, who says, remember to be kind to one another. You never know what someone is going through. We're all friends here, united in our support for Ukraine and love for its people. It isn't that hard to be a little kinder to one another. Heart.
And thank you so much once again for the support and also the message of the kindness. I do agree with you that kindness is incredibly important, and I think a lot of people don't really think about that anymore. I'll tell y'all a pretty interesting thing that we've always noticed on this channel is that there are some people out there who are just incredibly violent or incredibly rude for the hell of it. Like they get a kick out of it or something, and so they just go around and do that forever. And over time, we started to realize there really is no reasoning with extremely angry people. Like they'll be sitting there cussing out viewers. We'll be like, hey, stop that. And they'll be like, no, F you, man. What are you going to do? Like we can't ban them or anything. And so then they get banned. I would say, though, that it is incredibly impertinent to be very nice and respectful to people, because also one thing here in America, I feel like if you're not respectful to someone, there's a high chance in public that you could just get shot. And I don't really feel like being rude is worth getting shot. It's just better to be a polite person, a nice person.
Or smacked around a little bit.
Yeah, knock them around a little bit. Go to the clown motel and knock you around a little. Get the weights, spread them out, pump iron for 3 days. I ought to pull that up, Matthew, that little clip. I don't know, man. I don't think you're sane or something. And that would be hilarious. Should we?
Yeah. If we don't get copyrighted for it.
I don't think we will get copyrighted for it. Let me go pull it up real quick. Because people are gonna love this. let's see, Clown Motel, phone.
How long was the clip again?
Let's see here. 4 minutes about.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, man. But I think some of y'all may know Longmont Potion Castle.
Oh, hello?
We'll give that a second, though, and we'll see if y'all want to watch that. And if y'all do, we'll throw it up because it's a great bit of laughs. But I would definitely agree with you. It's very important to be very nice and respectful to people. I think that's just a cornerstone of being a part of society, and I feel like people are starting to forget that a little bit. Well, people have largely forgot that, but I feel like it's a very important thing to just remember to be on good terms with most people. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running, because we, of course, count on y'all to keep this thing rolling, and without y'all, this would have never been possible. And so with that, we are moving on to the next one, I think, but it looks like there may be some people in here that want to hear that phone call.
Looks like there might be a handful. But anyways, while we see what people are saying about that, the next one we have is from Panama Floyd, who puts in a $20 donation and says, keep the impressions, take a question from the chat, just wanted to give y'all some coffee money. And thank you, Panama.
And thank you so much for the support, Panama Floyd. Two cheers. And thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running. Of course, the coffee fund always helps. Without the coffee fund, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running. And also, can you reread it again, Matthew? Because due to my mental haze tonight, I've forgotten some parts of it.
You have a little mental haze?
Yes, a purple haze.
Oh. Keep the impressions, take a question from the chat, and coffee money.
And we will make sure to keep the impressions. It's just that I'm going to tone them back a little bit and only do them per request, because half of y'all love them to death and half of y'all hate them so much people actually leave when I do them. So I'm trying to balance those two out. So if someone like requests it and like through like pretty much just a super chat, we will, and we'll let like 100 people leave. But beyond that, we will keep them, though. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Panama Floyd. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And let's get a live chat.
All right, so the live chat goes to Steve Ehrlich, who says, Enforcer, what do you think would have happened if Ukraine had been fully outfitted and armed at the beginning of the full-scale invasion? And I don't think they would have invaded, personally.
I think if the Ukrainians had really been kitted out before this war, the Russians would have thought twice about it. They may have not pulled it off. But considering that they thought that the Ukrainians were still in their 2014 state, where they were very incompetent militarily, they thought it would be a breeze and they'd be able to blow over them rather quickly. And so with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well. And I thank you so much once again for the support. And if they had had that stuff before the war, it wouldn't have probably ever happened. And so with that, we are on to the next one. But it looks like, Matthew, a lot of people want to hear that phone call.
It looks so. It looks so.
So we're gonna whip this thing up on the screen. You know, like the clown and everything. This thing went out 10 years ago, and it looks like it's not copyrighted, at least according to this. So with that, here's the clip of the Clown Motel.
Clown Motel?
Yeah, this is Luther.
Clown Motel.
And I need 3 rooms for 3 days.
You're starting when?
Starting now. I'm going to come in, it's going to be me, my weights, my barbells, and 3 days of just working out.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm going to spread...
Call me back when you're serious.
Okay, I'm just gonna say this. This guy is so rude. He kind of deserves getting heckled on the phone like this. Like, dang. Like, how the hell do you expect to run a hotel like that?
Clown Motel?
Sound like a New Yorker.
Yeah, I'm looking for a place to spread out here.
I don't know what that means. Spread out.
I need a room.
Well, we have rooms there. $34.50 a night is all.
Yeah, okay, now look, it's going to be me, my weights, and just a whole bunch of working out. Pumping iron, okay? For 3 rooms.
There's only 5 rooms left.
Well, I need 3 of them for me and my weights. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out there. I'm going to unload all my dumbbells and barbells. Okay?
You mean put them in the rooms?
Yeah, I'm going to spread everything out. Got some artillery in there as well.
Well, we got 2 queen-size beds in each room. There's not a lot of room in those.
I'm going to spread everything out.
I don't know what that means.
I'm going to take stock of what I've got,
Right.
I'm gonna pump frickin' iron for 2 to 3 days straight, and then we'll settle up at the end. Sound good?
Well, you can't let the iron, the barbells drop on the floor where it could, we got carpet and tile in there.
I'll settle up with you at the end of my stay, and you can.
What you need to do is go down to Joel and see.
No. You can assess the damage at the end of my stay. Okay?
Well, yeah, I'm probably not interested. If you're, that sounds like you do damage to motels or something. Yeah, we're filling up every night without any problems.
Yeah, well, I'm on my way. I've got 2 Humvees full of barbells here, and I'm on my way down there.
He's got
I'm
Humvees.
saying you gotta go talk to Joe. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do that for you.
Charlie, you're not hearing me.
I am hearing. I don't want you down there. I'm the owner, and if you're going to do any damage to the rooms, I don't want you down there. That's it.
Just assess the damage at the end of my stay.
You probably make a lot of noise with the customers next door and stuff.
Oh, I'm going to be eating raw meat in the rooms. Pumping iron for 24
Wait a minute, is this guy Liver King before Liver King was even a thing? So I'm not going to pump iron. I'm going to eat raw meat. He's Liver King. Oh, man. Also,
don't even talk about the Liver King guy. That guy is just a straight up fraud.
Also, real quick, everyone. This guy is a prank phone caller. He's named Longmont Potion Castle. This is kind of his thing. And all of you are like, this guy's dopey. That's the whole point. He's like trying to be as dopey as possible. But we're gonna let this thing continue on for a little bit.
4 hours at a time.
Yeah, I'm not interested. You need to find another hotel.
I
don't want you.
I'm going to be down there in about 5 minutes. I got a Humvee here. I got 2 Humvees.
I'm going to tell Joe not to rent to you. You sound like you're not too sane.
What do you mean there?
Well, you sound crazy. I don't want you down there. We have cement floors and tile in all the rooms. I can't have you dropping iron on any of that stuff.
Fella, you're the Clown Motel, right?
Yeah, we are. I know that. And we sell out every night is what I'm trying to tell you. We don't need any extra problems.
I want to spread out, and I want to lift my...
I think we're going to pass this time. You need to go find another motel.
Dude, I'm bonded with the state.
Well, I don't care if you're bonded. That's not the place to have that kind of... We don't want that kind of thing to happen.
Why not?
Because it sounds to me like you're more problem than just the little $40 we get per night for a room. So I'll call Joe. Go on down there, but I'll call Joe.
No, I've already talked to Joe.
Well, then what did he say?
He said he wanted a cash deposit, and I told him no.
Well, then you need to find another motel. It's that simple.
I'm going to knock you guys into each other. How's that sound to you?
Damn.
You know what? One more word out of your mouth like that, and you're going to jail. How does that sound? I'm having dinner with my family. I don't need you to call me.
Oh, damn. They're eating dinner.
Where you at right now?
Oh, man.
I'm in Pahrump, partner.
Well, why are you calling me and giving me this shit for?
I'm on my way down there. I got weights to lift here, pal.
Yeah, but you're not going to lift them in my motel. It's that simple.
The hell I'm not.
You want to bet? The cops will be waiting for you. You go on down.
I'm going to spread everything out that I've got. I've got 4 anvils.
Oh, my God. I'm calling the poor guy
what are your
again.
rates over there?
Just the guy with the weights? The guy with the weights?
Not weights, rates.
Rates are $34.50 plus tax. But if you got...
We're full tonight. We're full.
If you got the weights, I don't want you there.
No? How about I knock you around a little bit?
Say again? What you say? How about you? You're threatening me now. Are you in? That's unavailable. Hold it. No, hold it. Well, where are you located right now? I'll come down and see you.
I'm en route.
You do whatever you want. Are you serious or what are you doing?
I'm a serious weightlifter.
What's your name?
Luther.
Luther what?
Luther Manhole.
Okay, I don't know what you're doing, but I don't need you screwing with me. I'm having dinner with my family.
I got the cash.
You got something wrong with you. I don't want you here.
I'm gonna knock you around.
You quit saying you're going to knock me on my ass. I'm tired of that shit. Shut your fucking mouth and get the fuck off the phone and don't call me back.
I'm gonna knock you down.
So that was the end of it, but that's the call that we were talking about a little bit earlier, just in case y'all were wondering. But with that, we are on to the next one, and I hope y'all enjoyed that little thing.
That man's wild for calling people up, talking about he's gonna knock them around.
Yeah,
That's
man.
crazy for a prank.
I mean, like that was crazy. That guy was getting pissed off, man. He was literally about to go out there and knock that guy around a little bit if he could. He's like gonna beat the hell out of him. And honestly, I wouldn't blame him because prank callers are really annoying. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also props to that guy for staying on the phone that long, by the way, the hotel guy, because I would have hung up in like 5 seconds. But anyways, up next, there's a $20 super chat once more from Panama Floyd, who says, thanks again for the speech, guys, and please, another question from the chat.
And thank you so much, Panama Floyd, for supporting us so that way we can keep covering this news and also get to that speech. And we'll make sure to take one from the live chat. But I got to thank you so much once again, Panama Floyd, for being a Lee Spring Army veteran and helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, let's get to that live chat.
And this live chat goes to Fermin Santorelli, who says, has France ruled out sending Leclerc?
I don't think they have, but we haven't really heard a lot of talks about it. So we haven't heard them rule it out, but we also haven't heard them seriously consider sending them either. So I hope that answers that question fairly well. We don't really have a lot of information surrounding the Leclercs. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for sponsoring that live chat, Panama Floyd.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $11 super chat from Mike D, who says, have you watched The Office? And can you do a prison Mike impersonation and talk about Dementors?
I have not watched The Office, and I don't know what prison...
What, you haven't watched The Office?
What?
Oh my god.
What, you've watched The Office?
No, but that's what people are going to say.
Oh. Oh my god, he hasn't watched The Office! Well, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. They asked me if I watched The Office. I said, yeah, through the blinds. But anyways, and now everyone's going to be like, oh god, it's Rodney. But let me see. I haven't watched that, so unfortunately I can't really do an impersonation on that one. I have a wide enough repertoire of voices for people to think that I have a really expansive one. But sadly, I don't know anything about The Office. Yeah, here he comes, Matthew. What? You haven't watched The Office? But still, thank you so much once again for the support. I wish I could, but sadly, I really don't know how to. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And make sure, since we couldn't do that voice impersonation, if you want another one, we could always try. So just shoot it in the live chat, and we'll circle back and see if we can get to it. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
All right, and the next one goes to Saint Skanderberg, who says, well, wait a minute, they put in a $10 super chat. I almost forgot. But they say, rip to the second Albanian national that died in Bakhmut and Slava, Ukraine.
Oh, dang. And thank you so much for the support. And that's unfortunate to hear that another Albanian has been killed in the war as a volunteer. I think there's actually been several Americans who've ended up getting killed as well, along with a lot, really just a decent amount of foreigners from every single country, the United Kingdom, the United States, Albania, Poland. I think there's been some French and Germans as well. But you've got to give a lot of credit to these people. They're going over there. They don't live in Ukraine. They've really had no association for the most part with Ukraine. They just believe in their cause, and they go over there and fight and sometimes die for that country and what they're standing for. And you got to give them a lot of credit, because unlike the Ukrainians who are actually defending their homes, these guys are just going over there because they believe in what the Ukrainians believe in. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jason Hubbard, who puts in a $10 super chat and says, we need to tell Operator Starsky about the shotguns so he can pass it up the chain of command.
And I thank you for the support. That is a pretty interesting idea. I think they should pass that up the chain of command, because they're always talking about the drone guns, drone gun this, drone gun that. Why not get a shotgun? Like, just grab one. I think that drone guns do have their place on the field, though, well, especially when you're trying to find a spotter drone and shoot that thing down. You will need a drone gun for that, because they're going to be so far away. But if for everything else, a shotgun will work just fine. And not only that, you can switch the shotgun from shooting at drones to shooting at folks by just putting buckshot in it. So it kind of works both ways. It would just be a decent weapon to have for any squad in the front line. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. Thank you for backing up our idea. And thank you for supporting this channel and helping this thing to keep on going. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right, and real quick, let me grab this bot. There we go. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from John Galt, who says, Enforcer, Poland licensed the right to manufacture SK weapons. SK gets a foot in the EU, and Poland gets to make their own weapons.
Interesting. And I thank you for sharing that with us, because I was wondering how in the hell they were going to make, like, the South Koreans have 800 something of them. Polish K2 Panthers, K2 tanks. The first K2 tanks handed over to Poland in 2022. That was just last year. Wow. operators. Operator, give me the Polish. The Polish are literally the only other country in the world that uses the K2 Panther beyond South Korea.
That could be a bad thing. I wonder why nobody else uses them.
It's kind of like how no one uses the Type 90 from Japan. Like, Japan's the only one that uses the Type 90, which is, I guess you could say, kind of their version of a Leopard 2, but their own design to it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And let me see. Let me go down to the... Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. Place of origin, Japan. Let's see. Countries that use it, Japan. Let me go find that. Yeah, see, no countries are listed as using this thing but Japan. They're the only operator. And it's not a bad tank. It's just that there really is no export market for the thing, so no one wants to buy them. Also, it got succeeded by the Type 10, and it looks better. It's also lighter and a little bit smaller, and that was so that way this thing could be transported throughout all of Japan and be used anywhere on the Japanese mainland. I like this one a little bit better than the Type 90 because it has some really nice lines.
Yeah, I like this one. This is very, very clean, very clean.
Let's see. Do they export this one? On January export attempt. There's a little section here for the export attempt. Sources revealed that Turkey was interested in signing a joint development deal of tank engines based on the Type 10s. So they didn't even want the tank, they just wanted the engine. Huh. It's still a good-looking tank, though.
Yeah, I like it.
But anyways, with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. But once again, really cool to hear the Polish will be producing their own. And let's make sure that's correct. Let's see here. On Hyundai, Rotem signed a framework agreement to supply them, and... total of 1,000 tanks will be delivered to Polish land forces. So according to this on Wikipedia, it says that they'll be producing them and delivering them to the Polish. It doesn't say anything about the Polish license building their own, but that may be a misprint, or there may be something a little bit more in-depth happening there. We can also see the Polish variant here again. It's a little different than the normal K2, and let's read about it. Let's see here, July 27th, executive 180... And let's see. On September 7th, Hyundai Rotem signed a partnership agreement to develop and produce tanks, armored vehicles, and ground unmanned systems. The contract includes joint cooperation in building production facilities in Poland for the production and maintenance of the K2s and developing next-generation ground combat vehicles, including the K3. So it seems as though Hyundai is just building factories in Poland. Hyundai Rotem, which is the section that does the, I guess you could say, defense production, they're going to be building factories in Poland to build them, but they'll still, I guess you could say, just be kind of like satellites of the original Korean company. But that is really weird to hear that they will be opening up assembly plants in Poland to produce the K2s because they're ordering so many of them. That's actually really cool in a way. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. We now cleared that up, and we now know all the information about the K2 and why the Polish are using it. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and sharing that little tidbit with us.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from John Underwood, who says, hey guys, come here. Are you Ukrainian? Oops, never mind. And then he says something in Ukrainian. And then he says, hey, blah, 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 blah. Keep up the good work, brothers. And also, I sent it to your DM too, by the way, because I don't know how to read that.
And I thank you so much for the support. I'll read it, but I don't think I'll understand it, so let me go over there real quick. Let me hop to it. There we go. Let's see. He says, hey, Zlopsy. That's not hey, Sokolier, which would be like, hey, you. I don't know what that means, sadly, but I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, hey, come here. You know, if World War III ever happens and I join the army and we're fighting the Chinese, I'm just going to look over there and I'm going to go, Bing Jiling, and then have them run over to me.
Everybody comes running out. What?
Bing Jiling? Social credit score? Bing Jiling? But anyways, with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope we addressed that comment fairly well. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for the support and helping this thing to roll. Because without a viewer like you, John, this channel wouldn't have been possible. And of course, to pull out the PBS line, we thank viewers like you for helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one is from Trister1, who puts in a $10 super chat. and says, "Hey guys, and thanks." And thank you, Trister, too.
And thank you, Trister, for the support. Of course, it helps us out greatly. And thank you for helping us to keep this thing running. Whenever Super Chats say thanks, I'm always like, I'm always conflicted because I'm like, really more so we ought to be thanking y'all because y'all are actually making this possible for us and supporting us to do this as a job. And so when y'all are like, thanks for this, I'm like, thank y'all because without y'all, there is no way for us to run this stream because we wouldn't be able to survive, you know what I mean? But anyways, thank you once again, Trister. We do thank you for the high praise, and also, hello. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and the next one goes to Nick, who says, been here a while, but first time supporting because I have to correct you slightly. The KC-135 is the backbone of the Air Force. NKAWTG.
Oh, get the hell! I'm just kidding. Thank you for the support, and you are correct in terms of like what is the backbone of keeping the Air Force running. It is Stratotankers, but in terms of the actual, I guess you could say, frontline carrying out of combat actions, the F-16 is the backbone. But I do see what you're saying. You are correct. The KC-135 is kind of the backbone, and that's also why every time you look at an airbase on satellite footage, there's like 20 of these at every single one. But look, the little F-16s get fed by the mother bird.
Yes.
Man, that little F-16 down there is going, tasty, and then it flies off. Also, here's an F-4 Phantom getting refueled by a, not a KC, yeah, that is actually a KC-135, just with the older engines.
I can't. Where's the jet?
I don't know. It just, I can't see it.
I can't see it.
It blends in so
well. I don't
well.
see anything. I heard something about a Phantom, but I don't see the jet.
I mean, like, it's like a ghost, man. It's like a Phantom. You just can't see it. And also, it's got camo on it. This makes it even tougher.
Don't y'all just love the cringe jokes that come around this channel?
Yeah, you know, if you like them, leave. Or better yet, let me cuss y'all out real quick because that keeps people around, right? But anyways, you know, I'm still waiting for a Discord message. I'm you know, it really does irk me. I'm not going to start up a beef or anything, but that irks me that I went out of my way to do something and then get completely ignored. That's just annoying. But anyways, oh look, it's actually the Boeing 707 and the KC-135 together in the same picture.
Oh, it sure is.
Oh, that's just so neat. I like that. Also, what the hell is this? Yeah, let me get my Chevy Bel Air and put it in front of this KC-135. Yeah. It's like, I don't get it. Anyways.
The Air Force still does it to this day. They put like Mustangs and stuff next to the jets to like try to recruit people.
You know, some geek out there like me is looking at that picture in high school going, wow, I would like to be a part of a Stratotanker team. And I'd also like a Chevy Bel Air. But anyways, enough making fun of myself. I thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $10 super chat. Excuse me. From Eric of the Internet, who says, donating after hearing those great impressions. Also, do you think Canada can afford to send more than 4 Leopards? And should I write my MP?
I think that Canada could donate some more Leopards. They don't have a lot of them to give, though, so it'll be a small number compared to what everyone else can. And also, I think you should write your member of parliament. I think that is incredibly important in letting these government officials know that the public is still behind supporting Ukraine, so if they don't support Ukraine, there may be repercussions, like they don't get reelected. And then what about my job security? So make sure to tell them that you want Ukraine to continue to be supported. So write your member of parliament. And also, thank you so much once again for the support, and I hope we addressed that question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on rolling.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Vance Hicks, who says, Enforcer, I wonder how the Russian hospitals and Ford medical facilities are keeping up with the casualties. I imagine adding this level of wounded to the normal flow of patients must be taxing.
Oh, they're probably hardly keeping up at all. I mean, we saw that one hospital in Rostov-on-Don that's still using beds that were donated by Winston Churchill's wife. And if that says anything, that says that the Russian medical sector is so far behind, they weren't even up to speed before this war. So I would highly doubt that they are dealing with anything well right now at all. There's probably people dying of infection in some of these hospitals because there's just really no way to help them out. And so with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well. Once again, all based off of really no facts or information, just based off of a little bit of what we've seen. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for support, helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope that addresses the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you.
All right, and thank you very much. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Raj Kapoor, who says, what do you think is the actual cost of a Russian cruise missile?
Probably around 1.5 million to 3 million, depending on which variant. That's been our ballpark estimate throughout the entirety of the war. So each time a cruise missile is shot down, that is 1.5 to 3 million dollars that isn't making it to its target and actually being effective. So it's just throwing money into the wind that will never be usable. And so with that, I hope that answers your question, Raj Kapoor, and thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. If it wasn't for a viewer like you, it wouldn't have been possible. We wouldn't have been able to have gotten this far. And, yeah, and of course, y'all's support helps us to keep this thing running. And I think that's the most important part, is that it helps us to keep this thing running. It hasn't helped us to get this far. It's helping us to keep this thing going well into the future. And so thank you so much once again, Raj. And we are on to the next one. And also thank you for being a Lee Spring Army soldier.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Sausage Gravy Biscuit, who says, please stop feeding the FSB trolls. They don't deserve analysis. Slava Ukraine, big fan, and here's a few ducats for law school.
And thank you for the ducats for law school, Sausage Gravy Biscuit. Ducats. I heard that.
It was wrong as ducats.
Like D-U-C-A-T-S?
No, like ducats, like D-U-C-K-E-T-S.
Oh, I thought it was like a ducat, like a coin from back in the day, but still.
No, this is a ducat.
Matthew, I was just thinking when I said ducat, gold ducat.
Yeah.
It's the Kardashian gold ducat. Y'all know where that's
Kardashians.
from.
Oh, hell no.
Oh no, they're coming with their plastic surgery.
Oh, hell no.
Oh, hell no. They're going to Deep Space Nine. They're going to start a drama. But anyways, moving on from that, I thank you so much once again for the support and helping us to continue on the stream, helping it to keep running, and helping us to get to law school. Also, Candy Nose Twin Skins said ducats is money. Oh? A window, box-like structure mounted onto the top or side of the brake van of a train, from which the guard has a clearer view along the railway tracks. What is a ducat in money? A ducat? Wait a minute, it actually, I guess, is the plural of ducat. It's a gold coin. Ducat sounds like ducat. Oh, I'm saying it wrong. Oh, that's not new. Anyways, with that, I thank you so much once again for support, helping this channel to keep on running. And also, Matthew, can you reread that one real quick?
Please stop feeding the FSB trolls.
Also, we've largely stopped while I stuttered my way through answering
Well, come on, man. Come on. What are you, nervous or something? Come on.
What, you lying two-faced phony? So I bet you can't do a push-up, fatty. But but I thank you so much once again for the support of Sausage Gravy Biscuit, and we probably won't. We've largely been rolling back on that because it was fun for a little bit to make fun and troll bots, but after a while it just kind of got old, so we just started banning them on the spot again. And so with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and thank you so much once again, Sausage Gravy Biscuit, for being our favorite breakfast meal, and also helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again. Also, Matthew, I was just thinking, you know, like with the whole Deep Space Nine Kardashian thing, remember that weird episode where Quark was trying to get, like, the scans of someone to put them in the holodeck thing as a, you know...
Yeah.
I was just thinking, if they showed up, he'd be sitting there, imagine the gold press latinum we could get from this. Like, I was thinking about that. That would probably be the weirdest, trippiest episode. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, please be sure to answer the poll. Y'all know how the recruiters for the U.S. military always tries to basically bribe people into the military by offering like cars like Camaros and stuff like that. Well, now you have the chance to vote for which one you would require to get into the military, so be sure to vote. But anyways, up next we have a $5 super chat from HerpDerpNV, who says, can you do a live prank call segment on stream one day where you call publicly listed Russian government office numbers, maybe use a trap or burner phone?
You know...
Yeah, we got a trap phone laying around somewhere around here. Let me go look for it.
pulling out the coop out of luck, telling him F12, F SWAT, busting out bells at the bus. I just pull out the phone and start rapping it to him. This is a trap phone. But I thank you so much for the support. And that is an interesting idea. Maybe we could do that. But I feel like our protection would not be that grand considering we'd be doing it on a stream in front of tens of thousands of people. And that would probably be easy to track down eventually. But that is a pretty cool idea. And I like the cut of your jib. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, you know it. We're on to the next one. But thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $4 super chat from Technician Underground, who says Friday, day 339. And this is Technician Underground's first super chat, by the way.
And thank you so much, Technician Underground, while Matthew coughs the lung out. 9mm can blow out the lung! But I thank you so much once again for supporting us on day 339 on a Friday for your first time. Of course, it's really cool to see brand new supporters come in and help this channel to keep on running, because I find it to be a high honor that people find this channel worthwhile to even support it once or continuously. So I got to thank you so much once again for the support. I hope we addressed that fairly well. I'm day 339. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and up next, big shout out to Dupper Bob for putting in a 2, and a shout out to Chris Webb for putting in a 2 as well. And they say, Slava Ukraine.
And to both of y'all, Slava Ukraini. Вічне слава всім, или тут, Slava Ukraini. And so with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you to both of you for the support. Y'all have always been helping out this channel, and without y'all's support, we couldn't keep this channel running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And that was our last super chat for tonight thus far. So real quick, let's address that poll. Which car would you require in order to be recruited into the U.S. military? It looks like 44% said the Ford Shelby GT500, 10% said Chevrolet Camaro, 21% said Dodge Challenger, and 24% said Chevrolet Corvette. Now on this one, I was in between the GT500 or the Corvette. The mid-engine Corvettes are pretty nice, I got to admit. But that Shelby GT500's engine is phenomenal, and that gearbox in that new one is excellent. It's like the shifts are insanely fast, almost like a Ferrari type gearbox. So I'd have to go for that one, and it looks like the majority, or at least most of y'all, would want to go with that one. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say, in my opinion, I don't know why I put the Corvette up there, Matthew, because that's for officers only.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh.
Enlisted people can't get a Corvette. They got to get one of the other three. They can't get a Corvette. That's just for officers only. 01 and up. But with that, I would have to say, I'd have to agree with the most of you. The Shelby GT500 really is something. Like, let's look at that thing real quick. The Shelby GT500. Wow.
Oh, it's rated 9 out of 10 on Car and Driver.
Wow. That's got
power.
Strength. Well, actually, I'm lying. It's not power, strength. But then he goes through that whole spiel. Oh, man. Have you finally seen that, though?
Yeah, I saw that. That poor guy might have some issues, but
I think that guy,
he's got a following.
I think the guy actually lost it right there. But anyways, I think that this is the best one out of the three options for the enlisted. The Corvette's kind of on its own. The officers are not as spoiled as choice as the enlisted are. They only get the one option, which is the Corvette. If you're enlisted, you get multiples. And I would have to say that this would be the best one. If the military wanted me to join, if they offered me to get that car, I probably would. And so with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well. And I think, Matthew, you said we're on into the live chats, except for this last super chat.
And yes, so we are on to this next super chat, which goes to Ron Anderson, who puts in a 10 and says, from Gen X to Gen Z, like be this channel and you troublemakers.
And thank you so much for the support, Ron. And also, Gen X to Gen Z, I've got to be honest with you. I don't really focus on generations a lot. I just feel like that's it's a weird way to divide people because, you know, there's a lot of things that people have in common from every single generation, because I found it really easy to talk to people my age and people that are 80 and anywhere in between. It's been fairly easy to me, and I don't know why people are always going, it's this generation that's to blame for something. It's like, what? It's like, that's just weird, you know? But still, I do thank you so much for the support, and also saying that from Gen X to Gen Z, we are bridging the gap there in between the perceived differences from generations. And I'm glad that you do enjoy this channel and enjoy the kind of trouble that we make on here, which is actually very tame and very calm, because we keep this thing Disney themed. And so with that, thank you once again for the support, Ron. I hope we addressed that comment fairly well. And with that, I think we're now on to the live chats.
All right, and we are. So the first live chat question here is from Chris S. And I got this report from many different people, but a disclaimer up front, I have not done research, nor have I verified it, so this is simply repeating somebody else's comment. Chris says, Enforcer, did you know that Vladimir Solovyev, the crazy Russian propagandist guy, lectured by invitation at the University of Alabama at Huntsville? I just learned that, and I'm shocked.
I have not heard that before. University of Alabama in Huntsville. And then I'll type in Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Volodymyr
Solovyev.
Solovyev. Hopefully I'm spelling that right. I think that's it. Let's see. Are you kidding me? Hang on. Let's see.
Wait a minute, I don't think this is the right thing.
Wait, hang on. I think this is what we're looking for.
Maybe it says where it's hosted at the bottom or something.
Let's see.
Oh, I worked.
Wait a minute. He said, wait a minute. Look. He says, and I am Jewish here, but I thought he was Muslim last week. Remember, he said, Akhmat is power. Allah is with us, and then he's Jewish. He says it right here.
And who's he talking about, by the way? Who's he saying as an anti-Semite and all this stuff?
Let's see.
That's wild. I had no idea that he allegedly worked there. That's what he says, at least, although we know he's a liar.
So he says Navalny is a Nazi. So interesting. He throws around the term Nazi very lightly. Anyone he dislikes is immediately a Nazi. But let's see here. Given all your extensive experience in the United States, today you're seen at minimum a determined adversary of the United States by your critics and detractors. What accounts for the shift in your views of the United States over the decades? First of all, I'm not working for the American audience. I don't have an international show that I hold. I'm a journalist, and on my shows, you have all possible points of view presented. No, we don't. No, well, not you. We have severe critics of Russia in my show from the United States. No, that's not true. I had on my show a former ambassador, John Herbst, who's in Ukraine, had American citizens many times and others that quite heavily criticized Mother Russia. We have nothing against the American people. Yes, you do. Actually, we always remember our mutual history of victory in the Second World War. No, you don't. We have open eyes. But when we say that we have anti-American views, that's not true at all. It just is not there. And then he threatens nuking the United States daily now, so I guess that was a lie. Of course, so wait a minute, hang on. Let me move on down, because it doesn't say anything about... Wait, there's pages to this thing? Hang on, let me flip to the next one. Close. So there's multiple...
I'm reading over here on this other website. It says he started when he met and talked. He talked with Vladimir Solovyev. He supposedly gave a presentation about Russia and the changes taking place under Gorbachev to the Huntsville Rotary Club in 1991. Then he was employed, allegedly, at the University of Alabama lecturing on something or other, but his position didn't last long, and after he saw him next, he was out of his job. So this was a long time ago, but allegedly worked at the university in the state.
So let's see here. I'm not going to click this allow thing. No, I'm just going to read this through the veil. Let's see here. He was an expert, and then he traveled. See, thanks to an American friend. FBI recommended that the university. Oh, look at this. Was invited to teach at the University of Alabama at the age of 27. However, he only worked there for about one semester because, in his own words, the FBI recommended that the university terminate the contract with him. I don't think the university would tell you, hey, the FBI came by and said we need to terminate your contract. And also, that's not how the FBI works for the large part.
That's not the way they work.
That would also be something that is delegated to the CIA because the CIA deals with foreign affairs and he is a foreigner. The FBI deals with domestic affairs that pertain to American citizens. So that is just inherently false because that's not even what the FBI works in regards of. That's not their field.
I think you can take from that like even saying that he worked at the University of Alabama could be a lie because the guy literally lies about everything. That doesn't even make any sense. The FBI doesn't just come down to somebody and say, you know, you might want to resign from your job tomorrow or else. They don't do that.
Yeah. Also, Matthew, I like how he says the University of Alabama in Huntsville. Like he came down here and we said, you don't belong here. Get where you back. Get back where you belong. And now he's like, I hate America. I hate the Americans. Thank you, Alabama.
What if he hates America so much now because he came to Alabama?
Oh man, that would be hilarious. And he went to Huntsville too, which isn't that bad of a place. Like it's actually not that bad. And so he went there, and all the rocket scientists went, "Gee, Hal, I don't really like this guy. He's kind of weird. Let's get him out of here." And then he left. Oh man, I gotta tell you, if he actually did lecture at the University of Alabama at Huntsville, apparently from what everyone's saying, it was incredibly short-lived. And he's sitting here now using that one experience to act like he knows America. It's like, dude, you were in Huntsville. Like Huntsville isn't even Alabama. It's like a thing outside of Alabama. You know, and how it is. And anyways, I think he wouldn't have liked Alabama anyways because Alabama's never really been that big of a fan of Russians. So with that, we're on to the next one, though. But I thought that was really funny.
I see a boatload of people saying the FBI works internally, domestically in the U.S., and the CIA only looks outward. That is actually not true. The CIA does operate domestically quite heavily, but you don't hear about it a lot. But anyways, up next, we have another super chat, this time from Rocco World Domination, who puts in a $7 super chat and says, since you guys are from Alabama, do you like the band called Alabama? Thanks again for providing the news and Igor and Slava Ukraine. And I personally don't like them that much.
And I don't really like Alabama that much. I like Lynyrd Skynyrd, though, that made the song Sweet Home Alabama. That's a pretty good band. But Alabama, kind of okay. I would have to be honest with you, though. There's been a lot of songs made about Alabama for so many people to make fun of us. So many people write songs about Alabama. I don't know why, but still, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And thank you, Rocco World Domination, for helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for a viewer like you, this wouldn't be possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you once again.
Still Worse Films said, so you're going to tell me I'm wrong, even though I work in the intel field for 13 years. But still works. The CIA has been well documented working domestically in the U.S. It's a historical fact. So I'm not sure exactly where you've come up with that, but I do know for a fact that they've worked here domestically quite a bit, and they still do today.
Let's look at the list of CIA activities in the United States. There's MK Ultra, always one for the conspiracy theories. Crusade for Freedom, 10-year campaign to generate domestic support for Radio Free Europe.
Yeah, you didn't know that?
Well, I didn't know I knew the United States funded Radio Free Europe. I didn't know the CIA was involved in like getting it off the ground in the 50s, but neat. And then in 1951, forerunner of domestic or OSINT, Office of Current Intelligence, and then in the 50s to the 70s, we can see again Project Shamrock, Project Minaret inside the United States with help from the NSA. But yes, they have operated internally in the United States, and I feel like, in my opinion, the CIA, when dealing with foreigners, would be, well, if the United States government had to deal with foreigners that were questionable and had arrived in the United States, I feel like that's something that would be delegated over to the CIA, because the FBI deals with trying to root out crimes being committed by American citizens here domestically, and that's usually their field, and the CIA deals with spies, espionage, and other kinds of things that generally pertain internationally. But if a I guess you could say foreign national comes here to the United States, then that becomes their concern as well. And we can also see that they did things here that didn't even have to deal with foreign nationals. It's just stuff they were doing in the U.S. But with that, I hope that addressed that fairly well. We're not saying you're wrong, Steelworks Films. It's just that we do see that they.
Oh, and also, Jay Bag will also provide us some more clarification. He said, actually, the FBI does spy on certain Russians in the U.S., and counter-espionage is part of the mission.
Interesting. It sounds as though like we may have to eat a foot, Matthew. You may have to join me in eating one tonight, because it does seem though, although the CIA does work internally, it does appear that a lot of people are saying the FBI does spy on the Russians, and also I guess you could say the potential spies and saboteurs that are entering the country. So thank you for clarifying that.
Oh, that's true. But the point I was trying to make was the CIA does operate internally as well.
Yeah, that's true. It is true, and they have. And so with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well. My tired little brain is not comprehending all too well. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank y'all once again for clarifying that. And also, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And let's see here. Let's see. Also, I was told by Heather Fitzgibbon that she sent in a super chat on PayPal, it looks like.
On the PayPal? Let me check real quick. Oh, thank you. Let me go get it real quick. Let me read it. Let me read. All right, so it says, oh, 1 second. Let me go back to it. Let me try and grab the message. Why is it so difficult? Why? Why can't I just read it? Super chat. Also, this is from Heather Fitzgibbon, $58.31 super chat, and I thank you so much for that. And you say, what do you know about the Russian freedom fighters who are fighting for Ukraine? Relatively, in terms of actual background information, we know about the origins of the people who were in the unit. We don't really know much about them. We know that they are from Russia, and we've heard varying different stories, like some of them were on vacation in Ukraine when the war started, some of them fled from Russia into Ukraine to fight for them. It's a very mixed group of people in terms of their background story, but they all have one thing in common. They condemn the current Russian government or the war in Ukraine. Currently, they are fighting in the area of Bakhmut. We don't get a lot of footage of them. The first time we ever saw them was around the 4th month of the war in the Battle of Kharkiv. They were sent there to fight, and I believe they were there until the liberation of that area, and then they got moved into the Bakhmut region.
And also, I think you're reading off the super chat from the other one we got the other night. I don't think that's Heather's super chat.
No, that is. It just came in.
She said nope.
Nope. What? I don't see it then.
We have a discrepancy here.
If you want to, you can throw it in here, because we haven't got it on this one. Also, real quick, if you could shoot out the PayPal account email that you sent that to, because I'm hoping you didn't get fleeced there by someone, because it's not in my account. And so with that, we're going to move on to the next one for now, and hopefully we can sort that out.
All right, so the next one goes to Grey War 777, who puts in a $5 donation and says, Enforcer, if Zelenskyy told Putin, hey, come over here, you think you'd fall for it?
I think he would.
Nah.
You see, Putin almost fell for the jelly bean trick on top of the Lenin mausoleum back when he first became president and someone was trying to kill him. They tried to poison the jelly bean and give it to him, and he refused it. But, you know, I think he would. I honestly think he would. And so with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and we are back to the live chat questions. And the next one is going to go to, let's see, Raj. Well, we already actually answered that question. Let's see. This one goes to Bobo Uzala, who says Ukrainian ingenuity is now legendary. If you give them a rubber band and a bar of soap, they'll make a missile. When will we see Ukrainian-made ATACMS?
I don't know when we will see Ukrainian-made attack-ups. That is really advanced technologically and maybe somewhat difficult for them to pull off. But I do have to agree with you. The Ukrainians are incredibly ingenuitive with what they have. They come up with things that are really interesting, and hopefully they'll eventually start using shotguns on the front lines to shoot down drones, because I cannot wait to see Ukrainians shooting them down like it's some kind of a skeet shooting clay, because that would be hilarious to me, and also probably highly effective. And so with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to, oh, also, we forgot to call out the Morse code. Tonight we had Rumpelstiltskin, C-Fay, Mark Hodges, and JP's RCs. They said the Morse code tonight says, Russia sucks a whole great deal.
Also, Matthew, you're going to have to get rid of Saul Goodman, because he's actually for the Russians. Rest in peace, Saul Goodman.
You don't call Saul.
I can't believe one of America's finest attorneys has ended up being a pro-Russian. Pitiful. But anyways, moving on from that, and to answer that question, can you reread it again?
It was the Morse code. Russia sucks a whole great deal.
Y'all did get it correct. Russia does suck a whole great deal, period. And actually, sadly, that's all I had tonight for the Morse code message. But I thank y'all once again for deciphering it, because y'all been doing that nonstop forever. And if it wasn't for viewers like y'all, we wouldn't keep running that Morse code message, because y'all make it really cool, because y'all are always decoding it. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And congratulations once again on doing that for another night, the 339th night.
Yes, indeed. And like Carter said, don't call Saul. That's true. But anyways, up next, we have a question from Kane, who says, have you guys seen the Senator armored vehicles that Canada is sending to Ukraine?
We have seen them many times. You can even customize them on their website. So yes, to answer that question, we have, and they are pretty cool. And so with that, we are on to the next one. Also, we'll pull them up real quick just to give them a little bit of justice. Senator armored car. I gotta tell y'all tonight, man, I am literally hardly here right now. I drank a lot of coffee too tonight, and it feels like I didn't drink any. But
I'm feeling a little bushed myself tonight. I gotta admit, like I'm sitting over here like kind of like slurring around and bouncing around in my chair and stuff. Like it's rough tonight.
I gotta say, and just for those of y'all who don't know what my current schedule is like, I wake up in the morning feeling like P. Diddy. I'm just kidding. I wake up in the morning. But anyways, I wake up in the morning at a very early time. I get up. I immediately go to college. I go to college. I drive home, work on college work. I have about 30 minutes to eat supper, and then I sit down after that, and I start working on this. And then I do this until about 1 o'clock in the morning. The stream will end in like 20 minutes or so, most likely. But after that, I stay up here and I work on things in the background on the YouTube channel for about another hour. And then I stay up a little bit longer because, you know, I just have to. And then I go to sleep around 3 or 2. And then after that, I wake up again at around, I think, 8 or 7. Sometimes 9 or 10 if I'm really lucky, and then I get back exactly to this all over again. I only get really one day now that's actually I don't get a single day that's a break, because Mondays used to be my break, but now I have to go to college on that, so most of my day is taken up with doing college, and the only difference is that on that day I'm not running a stream in the afternoon. But that is what
Enforcer loves to tell us his schedule a lot.
Yes, because whenever I say I'm tired, some people are always like, "Oh, come on, man!" It's like you don't know like what has gone on throughout my entire day to get to this point to cover the news, even. But just wanted to fill y'all in with that, because that's why I'm tired, because I've been doing this for 3 weeks now, like this non-stop schedule, 7 days a week, every day for forever, for the next like 11 weeks from now. But anyways. With that, we are on to the next one.
Meanwhile, I'm over here at my online classes, taking my math quiz today. I waltz into it, I study for like 5 minutes, wing it, and somehow come out with 100. No idea how. I suck at math, but I guess college has become a little easier these days, I guess you could say. But anyways, up next we have a question from Fushia Khan, who says, if we sent all the A-10s, if the first few pilots get killed, per Andrew, the Ukrainians would probably turn them into drones or maybe mount the 30mm cannon on a Toyota pickup. Send them. What are your thoughts?
not that bad of an idea. I think it's worth a shot. And that's really all I gotta say. So with that, I hope that answers that question somewhat well. I feel like that's kind of a cop-out question, but I just give it a shot and see how it went. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a question from Woody Stems. Excuse me. Who says, what happens to the grenade when the drone goes down?
Usually the grenade just goes down with a drone. If it hits in the right way, it could explode. But usually hitting the right way is one of the hardest things to do. Also, I was just wondering, Matthew, I'm going to ask this question real quick before we move on to the next one. Some of y'all have said before, and I've actually heard this from our moderator team on Discord, that y'all would actually enjoy a second channel where I play games. And I have really no time to really play games and make videos for games. But I was thinking if, for some reason after this semester, because I'll actually be having a break from college for a couple of months until I start law school up, would y'all be interested in seeing a second channel where I just play games? Because if y'all would like to see it, I would be more than happy to do it. But it would all be dependent on y'all, because I play games in my free time. That's really one of the few things I have time to do, because you can just throw it up on the computer and play it real quick. So I could probably make videos on that if y'all would like to see it, just for the hell of it. But anyways, with that, we are now on to the next one.
And also, just a note, hopefully, I hope that Heather Fitzgibbon wasn't had, because she said it was on Apple Pay, so it was legitimate. Take a question from the chat. So just a heads up to folks, we don't have any methods for folks to make donations outside of the stream, except for the PayPal, but we don't publicize that, only on like a rare basis. So if you ever see anyone asking you for donations that claims they're with us, that is most definitely a scam, and we don't use Apple Pay. So hopefully you weren't had on that.
To real quick address that, just to make sure we can cover how this works, just because we always are making sure to go out of our way to make sure that no one gets fleeced or scammed by someone outside of this channel. The only way you can support us, and we made this deliberate, is Super Chats. That is the easiest way to support us. We lose 30% of your Super Chat because YouTube takes it, but we find that to be worth it, so that way y'all don't end up getting scammed. The only other way that you can support me, the Patreon, there is a Patreon, and it's only on our videos. It's not on these streams, because the Patreon's support only goes to helping me to make videos, and that's really hard these days, but that's what that's for. If you want to help Matthew and me keep running these streams, though, the Super Chat's the way to do that. Or you can go to our PayPal. We do not give out PayPal information ever unless if it's on request. So the way you do that is you DM my account on Discord and you ask, hey, I'm a viewer, I like your channel, I enjoy what you're doing, and I was wanting to support you on PayPal. Can I get your PayPal account name so that way I can shoot that over to you? And I'll say yes, and I'll send you my PayPal account email, and then you can send it to that PayPal. If it's not through those three ways, then you're getting scammed by someone who's impersonating me or the channel and is asking you for money. So if it's not a Super Chat, if it's not the Patreon to support the videos, and it's not directly asking us over Discord for our PayPal, that is not us. So just to make sure to clarify that. And with that, we are on to the next one. But let us know, Heather Fitzgibbon, because we're going to try and sort this thing out as best as we can. And hopefully that didn't happen. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next question goes to Aaron Walters, who says, do you think if Russia declared war, do you think the West would get involved?
I don't think we would get involved then. I think we'd only get involved if there was nuclear, biological, or chemical weapons involved. And so with that, I hope we answered that question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Roger H., who says, Russian media just said that Russia should supply Iran with nuclear missiles so they can attack Israel. If so, shouldn't the U.S. then be clear to provide nukes to Ukraine?
I haven't heard them say that, though. I haven't heard the Russians say they would give nukes to Iran. But if they did, I would see no problem in really giving nuclear weapons to Ukraine. But at the same time, I kind of do. And so with that, I hope that answers the question somewhat. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to SPJ, who says, do you all know what the rules are for using a PMC? And does the PMC have to be from the same country that hires it? And could Ukraine hire a foreign PMC?
Unfortunately, beyond how PMCs can be treated in war, I don't really know a lot about the field of a PMC and if they have to be from the country of origin or anything like that. So unfortunately, I'd have to declare ignorance on that one right now, but I might be able to brush up on that and maybe get back to that question in a couple of days' time. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
The next one goes to Maple Leaf Spring, who says, should Canada use the Antonov A124 stuck in Toronto to deliver tanks to Ukraine?
Say that one again real quick.
Should Canada use the Antonov 124 stuck in Toronto to deliver tanks to Ukraine?
They could. There's nothing stopping them from using that little Antonov 124 from supplying them with tanks. So as long as they have permission from the company that owns the aircraft to do that, or they can get a charter with them, I would say there's really no problem with that at all. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. And also, due to me feeling like I'm having some sort of severe exhaustion tonight, we're going to answer questions until we reach 12:20 local time or 1:20 Eastern time, and then we're going to be rounding out the stream. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Tasman006, who says, what about the 120 millimeter M1028 canister round of the Abrams? They could elevate the gun and have a pot shot.
And can you reread that one again real quick?
What about the 120 millimeter M1028 canister round of the Abrams? Could they elevate the gun and have a pot shot?
M10238?
M1028.
2A?
28.
All right. And let's check that out. Come on, work with me. I feel like he could. I don't know how far the range is, but that's literally just canister shot. Like, that's just canister shot from, like, the 1800s. But I have a feeling it could work. And so with that, I hope that... Wait, did they say that's less lethal? Oh, no, they didn't.
I was about to say it's definitely not less lethal.
I was like, that is not less lethal. That will kill someone. I was like,
that's more lethal.
That's super lethal. But anyways, I have a feeling they could try that. There's nothing stopping them. And also, look at those giant powder pellets that they have inside of that shell. That is huge. Like, that's not like black powder pellets. Those are like black powder briquettes. Like, you grill with those.
Yeah, you grill with those, yeah.
Man, you grill. It's time to grill. Got to get on that grill. But with that, I hope we addressed that one fairly well. And we are on to the next one. Also, Misk just said he sent one to our PayPal to see if it still works. So let me check to see if we got that. And let's see. And it does. We did get it. It's a $50.
Is there a question?
Let's see. So Miss 77, measly bucks to test if this works for Heather. I hope it works. It did work. So you do have the right PayPal right there. And of course, this is going to be the only time. I'm going to make this exception real quick just to check. But the PayPal account that we have is under the email think tank, spelled THINK TANK 2001 2021 at gmail.com. If it's not that PayPal email, then it's not ours. So we did get that one. And thank you for the support, Misk77, in helping us out. Because, of course, we need that help a great deal. It helps us to keep this thing running. And also, it does work. Also, that's not measly. I don't know why he said that was measly, but it's $50. It's not small. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. And it did work. And so with that, we are on to the last one of this segment, and then we're going to be rounding out tonight's stream.
Right, and let's see here. The last one of the segment is going to go to Value Radar, who says, any idea how many Russian soldiers from the start of the invasion are still alive?
Not that, well, probably a decent amount of them, probably a couple of 100,000 of them, maybe 100,000 to 200,000 because they got wounded. And there may still be some there on the lines that have been there since the start and they're just suffering through it. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. We don't really have an exact number, though. We probably never will get that number. We can only take a guess, but I'm sure there are some. And so with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream. Of course, I thank you all so much once again for watching. If y'all did enjoy, make sure to subscribe, make sure to hit the like button, and also make sure to comment once this becomes a video, because this helps this video to reach the stars and let more people know about what this channel is doing, and helps us to keep on covering the news of the war. And so with that, thank you all once again. I will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, and make sure to take care. And of course, good night, good luck, and I'll see y'all then. Slava Ukraini!
Yes.
The Lviv Spring Army sends its regards.
Ще не вмерла України ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці, запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що